What up, though? You already know we at it again.
Hi, I'm Stubbs.
Yeah, that's the boy Stubbs over here rocking the blue and red.
Kind of lions today.
But you got the Wildcat on him?
Definitely.
Come on now. Hey, you already know what time it is. I'm your boy Adrian, a.k.a.
I'm Stubbs
Come
again.
on. Cosmic Shock, Dr. Spock, back at it again.
Peanut butter jelly.
I don't know about
I don't
that.
know what that is.
I don't know about that. But you know what? I'm glad we're here because I think we do. We got another special guest.
We do got another special guest.
Oh, man, this man right here, man, he's the grand wizard when it comes to this Bitcoin thing. Mr. Hill coming straight out of Southfield, Michigan. He's a graduate of Morehouse College with a degree in business. He also practiced real estate in GA, Georgia, for 2 years. Moved back to Michigan, became a mortgage loan officer for 5 years. And still an option trader for 7 years. Come on now. And now works for Detroit at Work as a financial expert educator. So today, what I'd like to do is to welcome our special guest, Mr. Desmond Hill, to the show. Come on, snaps and claps.
Snaps and claps.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and that was a heck of an introduction. I really appreciate it.
He's the best at it.
Man, I'll
He's
try.
default at it.
Hey, I learned it from this guy right here.
negative.
Don't let him fool you.
Okay.
Don't let him fool you. Hey, man, you know, I'm so glad you're here today. Bro. You know what? Because we have conversations off air all the time about what we're getting ready to talk about. And the main thing that I like for you being on the show is to talk about what people don't know about Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies in general, because we in a big wealth transfer. People don't even know it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's something I work as a financial coach with Detroit at Work / Sarah Metro Detroit. And I've been doing that the past couple of years. And one of the biggest things that I'm trying to educate the community on is that we're on the precipice of one of the greatest wealth transfers in our time. And really what that just essentially means is our actual financial system is getting ready to get upgraded. Okay. So a lot of us are still operating in a system that has pretty much passed us by, that's pretty much has deteriorated. And a lot of us aren't recognizing that, or we still have some outdated financial principles that we live by. So when I have financial workshops, and that's usually about 15 to 25 people class, or essentially people that come into my workshops, is really just getting the messages across. And the biggest message is, today, in today's society, if you're only holding on to dollars, and you're going to hear me say fiat, and I'm just talking about the U.S. dollar, the U.S. currency. If you're only holding on to fiat and you're not necessarily investing, and when I say investing, I'm just talking about appreciating assets. So assets that grow over time or put money into your pocket. And really the assets I'll be focusing on over this podcast is stocks, running a profitable business, still real estate, and gold has been making a huge comeback because that's always the world's reserve currency. And now this new asset class, specifically Bitcoin, and I'm going to focus more on Bitcoin versus the other cryptocurrencies, just because I look at Bitcoin as pretty much the foundation of this new monetary system that a lot of pretty much where our infrastructure is going. So this new emerging currency is pretty much how we're going to be able to preserve our purchasing power and wealth as the Federal Reserve, or the Fed, continues to lower rates and keep printing money out the wazoo. And that's the biggest thing people don't realize, is that fiat, there's nothing that's backing fiat. So I'll kind of just go.
None of that.
Exactly. So I'll kind of just start jumping right into that, just so we can kind of start laying down the foundation of, the matter at hand. Essentially, over centuries, of course, currency and money itself changes. Okay. It's all subjective, but the main thing when it comes to money is it has a couple of properties. First is the stock itself. Okay. So how accessible is it for this particular item? So back in prehistoric times, you had people exchanging seashells and different, metals, things of that nature. And, you go into like the Roman empires and stuff, they use precious metals, gold and stuff like that. And then as we get into more of like the 20th and the 21st century, specifically the 20th century or the Industrial Revolution, you pretty much had, government money. So pretty much government printed money, which today we call it as fiat. So, even just 100 years ago, when the Federal Reserve in 1913 was formed, money actually was backed by something, which was usually gold, as once again, that was the world's reserve currency. And then, different wars happened, World War I, World War II, at specific times, they would take the dollar off of it being backed by, gold or, different, metals in itself. So that allowed pretty much the government to expand to allow it to cover its debts for these wars. Okay. So after World War II, so in like 1945, we had the Bretton Woods, which pretty much put the dollar, again, on the gold standard. And then the biggest thing that changed was from 1945 to essentially 1971, you had Richard Nixon, our president at the time, that took us off the gold standard. So in 1971, that's when the dollar pretty much at that point ceased to have anything backing it. And that allowed our credit system to expand, pretty much allowed the Federal Reserve to print money without any, regulation or pretty much no cap in itself. So, of course, we all have seen that over the last few decades where you have people that own assets, businesses, business owners, investors, pretty much their net worth has appreciated, where for individuals, your employees or workers, blue collar workers, pretty much their wages flatline. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, before, it wasn't as dramatic in terms of, the 1970s, 1980s, where, the Federal Reserve was printing money. In the last 10, 15 years, more money has been printed than it has been in the last 100 years. So that's what a lot of us now are feeling over the last 10 to 15 years, pretty much since the mortgage collapse of 2008 or the subprime mortgage collapse. I call that the funeral of the dollar. Okay. And nobody's going to tell you that's essentially what happened, but essentially the dollar completely collapsed at that point in time. So we're kind of really just living this illusion that our money or fiat or our monopoly money actually means something.
Now, can I ask you this? Now, when you was talking about, 2008. Now, I was told many a time, because I was, going on my way out of high school in 2008.
Same.
They said that bailing out the banks was going to be the reason why we're in the situation we're in now. They said that's the reason. You mortgage your kids' future when you bail out the banks.
We're just pushing everything back into the future. Companies that make bad decisions financially and for their employees, they constantly get bailed out. So, of course, the money printer, the feds, go burr, where they keep printing more and more money to bail out these banks.
Which causes inflation, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So even just in the last 10 to 15 years, cost of goods have gone up by 50%. Okay. The Federal Reserve is already telling us that their target, which is so bizarre to me, where it's okay, our target for inflation is 2%. So what they're saying is we're going to inflate your money by 2%. That's our goal. No matter what, if you don't do anything, we're going to inflate your money by 2%, which means that your purchasing power or your spending power is just declining on average at least 2%. Okay.
So that means even though if you get a raise by I don't know how many percent, that's not going to mean anything because that's
not going to catch up. Mm-hmm.
So why don't educate people on this and tell people what's really going on?
Because it keeps you a slave to the system.
Okay. That's the answer I'm looking for.
Now, I do have a question. When they did bail out the banks, all the people who lost their houses to the bank, don't that technically mean their houses were paid off and they could have stayed in them?
What you mean? Can you rephrase that for me?
Like, say if somebody had a mortgage, clearly the banks own the mortgage.
Right.
Once they bail out the banks, don't that technically pay off your house?
No, because you're still in debt. Okay, so they're pretty much cleaning the books for the big banks, but at the end of the day, you're still liable for the debt that you took out. At the end of the day, they're going to get their money regardless.
So I'm saying, what debts did they have? They had debts. So
pretty much they was giving out loans to people that couldn't qualify for them. So it was a lot of, junk mortgages essentially that was in the system,
Subprime mortgages.
Exactly. So pretty much they just cleaned out their balance sheet in a sense. Like they basically reimbursed them of the money that they leveraged and gave out to individuals that couldn't afford it. So essentially you can look at it as like, if I owe you $100, but I didn't pay you back, you have somebody else like, here, I'll cover you. I'll give you the $100 instead, which with interest, essentially, So I owe you $100, but a stub is like, you know what, he's not gonna pay you back. It's fine. I'll give you $110, to reimburse you. While I still owe you the $100, they still gonna come after me. That's more of the simpler terms of what took place, but essentially the banks were able to give out leverage because when you put money into these banks or into your accounts, they're able to leverage that and send it out to the world at 100x, 10x, 1000x. So pretty much they're making money on top of your money while the interest on your mortgage is accumulating and you owe more than what the original purchase price of that home was. But it pretty much just cleaned out the books for these banks, for allow them to start from square one, essentially.
But your mortgage is in the books, so that's why in my opinion,
it's almost like double dipping. Yeah,
the way I see the world, they're clearing out your debt too, your mortgage. So once they build them out,
a rational person, yes.
Yeah.
Now I want to know about you and your history. What got you into wanting to know more about Bitcoin and educating people on it?
I think for most people, so I've always had a curiosity about finance. So my degree is a business administration with a concentration in finance. So I always knew I was going to do something with that, some other derivatives of just, investing in real estate and things of that nature. So I started investing heavily, I would say, in about 2018, 2019. That's when I was more so options trading. I don't do it as much now because my time horizon is a lot longer. So everything that I invest in is 3 to 5 years. I'm not doing the quick trades, and there's nothing wrong with that, but time in the market is better than time in the market. So I first got introduced into crypto, I would say 2020. And I think that's when, most people started new adventures in their life, because pretty much everything was shut down. And I saw it as an opportunity where the market, and I was actively trading there this time, where I saw the market bottom out in March of 2020, April of 2020. So even at that time when the market bottomed out, Bitcoin was trading at $3,000. Essentially, okay, and in today's price, it's at 115,000. Got as high as 127,000. So everybody that received the stimulus checks, for me personally, I ended up just investing in the markets at the time because that's what I was doing. I was still working during COVID, so how a lot of people was just using the stimulus checks to actually to buy, consume, essentially, because that's really what the whole premise of when the Federal Reserve print money, they're trying to stimulate the economy. So they want you to spend money. Okay. Now what you do with that money is really just up to you. Okay. So, even where I'm at now, where I'm very, I guess people call it a Bitcoin maxi, it didn't start off that way. But Bitcoin is one of those things is you have to educate yourself. And once you educate yourself, that's when you're just like, okay, there is a solution to our dying fiat or to our corrupt financial system. So even just talking about the mortgages, in your mind, you're like, well, I think, if the banks got bailed out, that essentially should have bailed out, everybody else. And it's just like, no, that's what the corruption in our institutions really look like. And, it always puts the individual at a disadvantage. So really, just over time, just educate myself, being in the crypto market longer, and then really just seeing the benefits of it where, yeah, the cost of living is going up, but I'm not feeling it as much as maybe some of my peers. And, during that time I was investing as well, the stock markets. And like I told you guys, like I hold things for about 3 to 5 years, pretty much during every 4-year cycle, depending on what the policies are and all that other stuff. And it put me in a position where over the, last year or two, so 2024, 2025, I was able to pay off, my car and things of that nature. So it put me in a better position financially. And the biggest thing is, the things that we discuss and we bounce off of one another is it's all about discipline and patience. Okay.
I definitely agree. I do dividends, so I definitely agree about patience. I did want to ask you a quick question. Do you feel like lowering the cost of living would have just stimulated the economy? It's always raising. Why don't we try lowering it?
So the biggest thing is the dollar isn't worth anything. So as they're printing more and more, the dollar is in abundance. So it's going to take the demand has pretty much the products and services hasn't really changed, but the amount of currency that's in our system has changed. So you have the same amount of money or a lot more of money chasing the same amount of products and services. Okay. So of course, if you don't have a certain amount of supply of something, so a specific, good or services, when you talk about like groceries and things of that nature, it's going to automatically inflate the price, because it's more money in the system. There's only so much of the same product or services that hasn't changed. And that's based on our productivity. So even just think about over the last 5 years, you hear people, and I'm in the workforce development, like that's all Detroit at Work is. More and more people are kind of opting out of the system, working. People aren't actively trying to work, or if they are trying to work, they have these high demands of, okay, you haven't worked in 2 years, but you want to make $25, $30.
I feel like that's a beautiful thing to opt out the system. I'm sorry, that's just me though. I don't know how
but you know what? Not to cut you, but the energy of that is definitely out here because you got more and more people saying the same thing. Like I'm not this is not how it's supposed to be.
Exactly. So the productivity has just shifted. So when you're saying, why can't they just bring down the cost of living? Well, because the money itself is just plentiful. So that's the thing is like in Germany, in the 1920s and 1930s when they hit mass inflation, this is like everywhere. Inflation, like it takes, a lot of money to buy a loaf of bread, or even meat for us. Like right now, what we're seeing is just like,
look at the eggs.
Exactly. Beef and things of that nature just cost, so much or whatever. And at the end of the day, you have all this money, it's taking more and more. So when I say you want to preserve your purchasing power, that's what that means because, your dollar isn't going as far as it used to. You don't have like dollar menus like they used to be or anything like that because essentially, it's taking just more and more of that same dollar, that same $5, 10 years ago to buy exactly the same amount of goods today.
Even a dollar store went up to I think $1.25 now.
$2 store. Yeah.
I'm surprised Arizona iced tea ain't went up. Don't jinx it. Let me not jinx that.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
I do want to know: should we get rid of physical currency?
Maybe in our generation, sure. I think because when I speak to a lot of older individuals, people that's more around the retirement age, they still just want to have something tangible in their hands, something physical.
A cell phone that can go beep.
Right. And that's how I look at it. When people say, oh, Bitcoin is, tangible, I can't touch it. I'm like, well, you carry your phone everywhere. What difference does it make? Like you pretty much have access to Wi-Fi wherever you go.
But you think a good hacker will one day ever be able to access Bitcoin accounts and crypto wallets?
Not anytime soon. So Bitcoin, out of its 15 years of existence, has never been hacked based on this protocol, proof of work. SHA 256 pretty much is the type of mathematical computational algorithm that pretty much makes the Bitcoin protocol operate. And pretty much what that means is each block within the blockchain, which is pretty much a public ledger. So there's only going to ever be 21 million Bitcoin in circulation. So we can kind of start talking about that. So off rip, that's a scarcity asset. So how you have fiat, USD dollar, and most government money across the world, the central banks or whatever is overseeing their monetary policy, they can pretty much print as much as they want. So once again, there's no cap on how much USD can circulate in the economy. And we already had our Federal Reserve drop interest rate this past month, and they're going to keep doing it about 25 basis points over the next couple of months. So what that means is in your savings accounts, right now in the market, like if you have a money market account, savings account, high yield savings account, you may see like 3.5%, 4.25% on your annual percentage yield. You pretty much now have that essentially being, with Bitcoin, you got a hard cap on that. Okay. It's 21 million that's ever going to be in circulation at the end of the day. Okay. So what that means is, it's decentralized. So a government body, individual cannot print anymore. There's only ever going to be that amount of circulation. Right now, there's 20 million that's in circulation. Okay?
Ain't that why they have Bitcoin mining?
Mm-hmm. So Bitcoin mining pretty much works through that protocol that I mentioned, the SHA 256, where it basically it takes about 2,000 to 4,000 transactions that makes up one specific block. And that's what makes this blockchain going all the way back. Like if you look at the actual Bitcoin ledger, you can trace it all the way back to the Genesis block in 2010, where the first transaction actually took place. So going to answer your question about pretty much hacking, each block has the signature of the previous block that was minted. Mm-hmm. So for somebody to hack the system, they would have to pretty much go down the line and hack each system, which would take billions of computational power, essentially. Because what Bitcoin is doing, and this is kind of now where we're getting the shift of physical labor into, monetizing energy and time, is that this system essentially is, solidifying, it's preserving time and energy it took to mint this specific Bitcoin, to, pretty much to validate this specific block of transactions into the whole Bitcoin blockchain technology. Okay. So to override the system, it would take pretty much, you can almost think of it as like 10 to 15 years worth of energy just to hack the system itself.
Well, they are working on quantum computers now. That's why I said
it's still, I mean, the system itself through the validators and the nodes, it upgrades itself as time goes on, as more people join the network in itself. To keep in mind, it's a decentralized network, global network. Okay. So as we continue, more people get involved into the system, be it being a validator, a miner, or holding Bitcoin, the system in itself gets stronger, okay? And then quantum computers just isn't there yet to actually hack the system. So what most people think about when it's come to scams and hacking is third-party counter risk. So, if you hold your Bitcoin in, maybe like a Robinhood or a Coinbase, and I have Coinbase and I haven't had any problems, but those are, quote unquote custodians or exchanges. And that pretty much is where, if something was to break down with that specific company's system, because keep in mind, Bitcoin is decentralized, okay? Mm-hmm. Like the network itself is just so advanced, and just the way that the algorithms work, you have a better chance of your money is actually safer in Bitcoin in its actual network and protocol than it is in your own bank account.
Is that right?
Yeah. Your PIN is only 4 digits, 6 digits long, and
you got so many scammers out here, and swipers out here that's willing to get your information.
Yeah, and they always say, so if you start getting deeper into the crypto market, and just that whole world, is that, you hear things like, if it's not your keys, it's not your coins. And what that means is, essentially, once you buy a Bitcoin, you can take it off the exchange and put it in something called a cold wallet. So just think of it as like a physical wallet, okay? And a cold wallet pretty much has, when you activate it, has 26 random, words into it. So that's how, you could pretty much protect yourself by, getting rid of the third-party counter risk, where you're not keeping your coins on exchanges and you're actually keeping it in what we call as a cold wallet, or you can just think of it as like a physical wallet.
Now, there's a question I've been wanting to ask you, since you got up here. They're telling the average everyday people, do not buy Bitcoin. It's a scam, this, that, and the other. But you got big name companies and CEOs buying Bitcoin like crazy. What's up with that?
Well, even in 2020, when I first wanted to get into, because it was my friend's sister that got me actually, talking about it. It was crypto.com and Crow. And, we was talking about it. I was okay, let me look at this. So when I wanted to start transferring my money from my bank, they gave me a hard time. And this was back in 2020. And it was like, no, it's a scam. And it really, at the end of the day, your bank makes money. And this isn't new information. Your bank makes money off of your money being in that account.
Yeah,
facts.
Okay. True. So they're going to say everything they can to keep, your funds within that institution, versus Bitcoin is, as you get deeper into it, it's a way, freedom, having sovereignty. So a lot of people are, concerned. It's one of those weird things. Like it's interesting, where people want to have autonomy from the system, but then at the end of the day, people want to have like insurance. Like, well, if my money gets hacked, what can you do to reimburse me? And that's kind of one of the things that come with,
FDIC.
Exactly. 250,000 insured in a single account, and from there, and it's one of those things where it's like, okay, if you want complete sovereignty to a dying system, I mean, you got to be the one to know a little something. And that's why with Bitcoin, it is one of those. It's a process where you educate yourself. Like it forces you, because all this stuff we're talking about sounds very mathematical, engineering, coding type. So it's like through that process of learning what money is, because that's really what it comes down to. Like, what is money? And I start off with the definition of like the basic property of stock and flow. How. The stock, how easy accessible something is. And then I think I didn't get to the flow part, but the flow is how easy it is to transfer that currency or that, monetary value or that medium of exchange from one person to the next. So you got the stock, how easy it is to gain access, the scarcity aspect to it, and how easy it is to transfer that money, locally or globally. Okay. And Bitcoin, just when you start looking at its actual properties, it just dominates, going against gold. Because, gold has always been, a reserve currency, but even just mobility, you're not going to go across Canada with all this gold blocks and, ounces and bricks in your pockets, versus Bitcoin is just like this value. You can just send it across borders seamlessly. It will settle within 10 minutes and things of that nature. So Bitcoin puts you in a position where you have to start learning what is money, because most of us just identify money as a way to consume. Basically, it's just consumption, or, just a representation of money of, nice clothes, cars, things of that nature. But really, when we talk about money, it's just what is something that is going to preserve my labor, my time and energy, so that in the future, the work I put in now still has value. And that's the biggest thing people need to recognize, is the work that you're doing now. If you're constantly operating within dollars, that dollar is no longer preserving the work that you did today. Back then, like even in the 80s and stuff like that, with, a savings account, they used to have savings accounts that would pay you 8 to 10% yields. And keep in mind, inflation was nowhere near what it is today. So, now, going back to what I was saying about, now today's market, it's about 3.5 to 4.5%. I mean, that's really nothing when you consider that inflation is at 2%. So if you don't even have a savings account or a high yield savings account that's giving you 3.5 to 4.5%, inflation is already eating up your money at 2%. We already know over the last 10 years.
And the dollar is going down constantly too.
So cost of living has already gone up by 50% in the last 10 years. The dollar actually has lost 97% of its value since 1971. So since 1971, when we were taken off the gold standard by Richard Nixon, it has lost its purchasing power by 97%. And one thing I was looking up, with Bitcoin and, just talking about something with it being a scarce asset. So it's only going to ever be 21 million in circulation. We're at 20 million. The last Bitcoin that's going to be mined is roughly estimated to be around the year 2140. So we'll all not be here anymore, but it just shows how long the system or this protocol is going to be actively operating in the sense of putting, currencies that isn't being manipulated, inflated. Is not anybody. There's no voting on it. There's no companies. There's no policy makers or anything like that that's involved. You're basically going to have that constantly compound, and usually they look at it as like a 4-year cycle. So it averages out since its inception over the last 15 years. It averages out, compound appreciation growth rate essentially, or compound annual growth rate. The CAGR is around 30 to 50%. So Bitcoin compounds around 30 to 50%. It used to be higher in its earlier days, while you got the dollar that, is declining. I'm going to give you guys a specific number on that. SP used to be a target if you have an index fund, that represents the SP 500, which is the top American companies. You're shooting for like 7 to 9%, gains, and gold has been like around, 4 or 5% roughly. It's gone up in recent months just because people are moving away from the dollar. So we've seen these price hikes from gold is because you have other nations like China, BRIC, that's looking at other ways of stabilizing their own currency, or pretty much just trying to start running the show themselves at the end of the day.
Did you want to ask, because I got a 2-part question on that.
I do got one question. Oh, dang, where did it go? People who lose their password to their crypto wallets or crypto accounts, what would then happen to the Bitcoins? Will they just forever be locked away?
Forever gone.
And nobody
so that keeps into the scarcity.
Yeah.
Keep in mind.
But I'm saying, would there be a way for the system to know, hey, these are offline now? Nobody will ever be
you can monitor it. You can look at it where it's not necessarily that. Well,
because there's a guy in Germany, he lost.
A lot. Yeah,
I want to say Dwight Howard. Somebody else just lost. Somebody in the
You can check to see like the activities of certain like wallet addresses and stuff like that.
Yeah. But before you really get into it, don't Satoshi Nakamoto got a big, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like a million.
Got a million,
Bitcoin. Yeah. And they're like dispersed amongst different addresses and stuff. Yeah.
Also, I got a 2-part question for you. It's kind of a little bit off Bitcoin, but I'm gonna start out with this: the Great Reset. Mm-hmm. Do you think we're in the middle of the Great Reset right now?
Yeah, I think all of it is just part of this. And like I said, I think a lot of it started back in 2008, 2009 with the mortgage crash, essentially.
What about 9/11? You think it goes as far as back as that?
Well, I honestly say it starts with me. We want to talk how far it goes back. I mean, we could say 1913.
Yeah, we can.
Once we say government monies came into existence, that's when everything pretty much went downhill. And in any civilization that printed their money or tried to print their way out of debt, they went bankrupt. So what the United States is going to try to do is, and this is now, we're going to talk a little bit more about legislation that's getting passed. So right now you got 3 huge legislation bills that's going through Congress right now. The first one that already went through the House and the Senate is the GENIUS Act, which pretty much gives clarity and regulations to stablecoins. Stablecoins pretty much supposed to have a value which is 1-to-1 to the US dollar, or backed by short-term treasuries, okay? So the most common stablecoins right now for the United States economy is USDC and USDT, okay? United States dollar tethered and United States dollar, crypto, whatever. And those are like the stable coins. And really what that's going to do is just provide liquidity or global liquidity to different capital markets. So I see it as the government is just going to get ready to put $37 trillion that we have in debt, and they're going to just pretty much sell it to the global, capital markets, essentially via liquidity and things like that. So that's the Genius Act. It's just going to provide more regulation clarity to these specific stable coins. So then our US dollar pretty much can go further in these different capital markets around the world.
What was the second one?
Okay, and then the other one is the Anti-CBDC Act, essentially saying the United States government itself cannot make its own cryptocurrency. Okay, so we'll see how that goes. And then the last one is the Clarity Act, which is the overall broad market structure of cryptocurrency or the emerging crypto market. So you could think of it as like the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, that was formed in 1933, pretty much when the Great Depression happened, that oversaw, the stock markets and pretty much protecting its consumers from, pretty much the corrupt system, So those are three bills. And the one thing that is very profound about these three bills is marking pretty much the beginning of a new era. And like I said, it's more so that our financial system is getting ready to get upgraded because our financial system hasn't been upgraded in decades.
That's like the reset right there.
What was the name of that one you said? America can't print its own money?
Well, it can. Like, they're not supposed to have their own spiritual currency.
Crypto.
Like, China's trying to make their own cryptocurrency, where it's like the China just.
What was that? What was the act that you said?
Anti-CBDC Act.
Anti-CBDC. Okay.
Also, the second part to that question is, do you think the so-called slaves are waking up?
Yeah, because the thing is, something is off, and that's kind of how I start with. Well, I'm gonna finish answer that question, but yeah, and the profound thing about with this legislation is that you have the Democrats and Republicans actually agreeing on these bills, pretty much. So how it's been most bills that's been getting passed, you have one side that's completely against it, and vice versa. You actually have both sides voting for this. So even after this administration, it's something that isn't going anywhere, and there's a track record for it. And, you talk about Satoshi Nakamoto, who has 1 million. You have BlackRock, which is the largest asset manager in the world that owns right around 3% of the current circulation. So you have, this type of company. Even the United States, also have its own Bitcoin. And they also trying to create a strategic reserve where they're actually actively trying to put Bitcoin on their balance sheet, okay? Because it's going to be a hard asset, which is going to be good collateral. So kind of just answering your question, do I think, the masses is kind of waking up? Absolutely. So I kind of mentioned how, the cost of living has gone up by, 50% over the last 10 years. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, things aren't necessarily getting more expensive. It's just your dollar's getting weaker. And one thing I hope this emphasized, how weak the dollar is. And I was looking at this and I was calculating it. So with Bitcoin, and I keep talking about the last 10, 15 years because that's how long Bitcoin has really been in existence, since 2009, 2010. So on average, because I was looking at the price appreciation and all that good stuff, how it's compounded, I was like, on a daily basis, what is the appreciation of Bitcoin on a daily basis? And it compounds daily at a 0.25%, so 0.25, all right? Now you have the US dollar. If you don't do nothing with your US dollar, it devalues or it loses its value by 1/1000%, so 0.007. So even though that may seem small, you have one asset or one, currency essentially, or a medium of exchange or a store of value, Bitcoin. You pretty much have this that's on a daily basis, 0.25% that is gaining, an appreciation, and then you have another that's losing its value by 0.007. So you're only going to see this wealth gap, and that's the biggest thing, is going to get worse. And so it goes back to, if you're not actively, and it doesn't have to be Bitcoin. And that's the one thing also is like, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and there's more than one way to do that. But if you're not outpacing inflation, so once again, if you don't have your money at least in a high yield savings account, at about 4.5%, I mean, inflation at 2 to 3%, even in 2022 and 2023, I'm talking about 2 to 3% inflation. Those years saw up to 8% inflation. So you're wiping out 3 years of somebody's purchasing power just like that.
Now, what about money market accounts?
I mean, it's roughly the same. I mean, it's a hybrid of a savings account. You put it into the market. It's still pretty liquid, but not as liquid as if you have it in a high yield savings account. But they're all around 4.25%, 4.5%. But what you're going to see is, with the Federal Reserve going to keep lowering interest rate, they're just going to flood the economy with more money. So it's kind of like putting a Band-Aid, on a huge wound. And initially, once again, like it happened in 2020, where you're getting this stimulus, it's going to stimulate the economy, and I do believe this administration is trying to shuffle things around, but it's but it's like, but it's still affecting you and I to the sense of like, you guys sold off the United States a long time ago. You moved our manufacturing jobs overseas.
It's a corporation.
Yeah, exactly. United States is a corporation, and it's like you now want to go against, China when it's like they make everything for us. And I understand the longevity of like, okay, you want United States to be dominant. Trust me, I love United States like the next person. But if everything I own is made in China and now you want to disrupt the system and then expect the common man when you already inflated their money and purchasing power away, what do you think is going to happen? So that's why I'm like, if you're not even holding your money in, real estate, profitable business, stocks that is appreciating in certain stocks, mostly, if you want to look at tech, AI, I know people are kind of saying it's a bubble, but, one thing with AI, I look at NVIDIA, and I think I was telling you this over the phone, and this is another way to look at how the markets are pricing physical labor. So NVIDIA is the largest company, largest manufacturer of chips, semiconductors, all that in the world. And their value is like at $4.5 trillion. Okay. Now you have India, which is the fourth largest economy with 1.4 billion people, and NVIDIA is worth more than that entire country's GDP output.
You had a right company.
Right. They're all companies, right? So what that tells me is that, when I talk to individuals, because it's so tough because, all we hear, and, it kind of goes back to, do you think more people are waking up? And I say slowly because still it's like, okay, I need another job. I need 2 jobs,
Yeah.
And it's just, there's not enough time in the day, So it's just like, how many jobs can you really work when at the end of the day, the wages still ain't keeping up? But on top of that, you're asking to receive, money that is still losing its value. So you're chasing something that is stagnant in its potential worth of growth, but is also being debased by the Federal Reserve, and it's losing its value day by day, and it's compounding day by day.
Can I ask you a question that's kind of off topic?
Sure.
But kind of on topic. The women of today don't understand that. They don't understand that we're trying to chase money. I mean, not chase money. We're trying to be ahead of inflation and all these other things. And here they go with the audacity. Oh, you got to make $2 million, or you got to do this or that. How do you feel about the mentality of the women who don't understand today's economy and what a man is trying to accomplish financially?
So I would say this about women, 90% of the people I actually work with individually actually are women, and I think they have more incentives to actually, prosper and actually, increase their income because most of them in our community, they're single mothers, and they have a lot more that's on their shoulders than, the men. And usually the men that I talk to think we already have all the answers. That's just kind of how we go. So women that I've interacted with usually are more open to learn because I think they feel like they are actually more in survival mode, and that they actually have, individual or more individuals that's dependent on them. So, but the funny thing is when I talk to women about this, I'm saying all this other stuff because for me, I'm thinking long-term. I'm talking like 10 years, building up, investing, da-da-da-da. And then their first question is always like, okay, great. So when can I spend it?
You know what? It's so funny you said that too, because sometimes around new people, I have my own little survey question. You know what it is? I was in a group of coworkers, 2 women, 2 men. And I asked them, you got $20,000 right now. What would you do? Would you save it, invest it, or spend it? The men said, I would save half of it, invest the other half, and spend it. They both had similar answers. The women said, I'll blow that shit.
Yeah. Because, I mean, a lot of it is just instant gratification. And, I mean, all the marketing and advertising that is, pumped into our system is geared towards women. Like everything is geared towards,
Diamonds is a girl's best friend.
Yeah. Women tend to, lead trends and stuff like that. So if they can get women spending money and everything like that, I mean, the rest of us kind of just follow suit in a sense. So to answer your question, I mean, really it's more so they want instant gratification. For me, I'm thinking of the compounding effect.
We think more about longevity. Like, I'm trying to see the 5, 10, 20 years from now. You just want this purse.
Exactly.
It don't make sense.
Like my sister, I'm trying to get her into this. I love you, sister. But, she wants, these nice purses, shoes. Yeah. And, I have, her money invested in, these different assets. And, she's just impatient. I'm like, man, this is how you get, rich, quote unquote. But it's really how you build wealth. It takes discipline. And, everything is designed for us to just want to spend now because we live in a consumer, economy. So it's just like spend, 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 spend. And, one thing I would tell individuals like, okay, well, where do I start? Well, because I know people just like spend, spend, spend. I usually say if you have $10,000 or $20,000, you want to invest probably just starting out. If you don't know anything, maybe like the SP 500, so like SPYG, which is a growth fund that tracks the SP 500, which, already covers Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, Google, Amazon, things of that nature. And then once you kind of got your foot into the markets, because the markets is like a living, breathing thing, that's when you can start saying like, okay, I spent so much money at Apple. You can start individually like, okay, I love Apple products, so I'm gonna invest in Apple, or Nike. I like Nike. I was gonna say that, I'm gonna invest in Nike. So then you start supporting these companies that you already spend money on. It's like, well, I might as well make money on some of my money. So the caveat going all the way back to when we're talking about physical labor and things of that nature, if you're thinking about, okay, I need another job so I can make ends meet, as much as you're thinking about getting another job, think about, okay, once you have that money coming in, what are you going to do with it? Okay. And you better put yourself in a position where your money's working just as hard for it as you are for it. You know what I'm saying?
There's one that we talk about off air too, MSTY or Misty by any chance.
I got that.
Yeah, that one right there. People, that's a hell of a dividend stock right there. Yeah. People ain't hip to. You want to tell the people more about that?
Sure. Okay. So now I guess we can start talking about, okay, what's some of these solutions, okay, to you're like, okay, Desmond, you're saying all this stuff, my dollar doesn't mean anything, it's losing its purchasing power, da-da-da-da-da. So there are companies now that essentially, that are pretty much using the Bitcoin that they have accumulated to basically give back to, the consumer or the individual investor, I should say, not consumer, but the individual investor in yields. Okay. So how I mentioned, 3.5 to 4.5% yields from these regular standard savings accounts, money market accounts, things of that nature. You now have, companies that's offering these yields, not specifically Misty, I'm gonna go to that, but just straight, 8 to 10% yields. Okay. So you're already going to be beating the United States bond market, and what they can offer by double. Okay. So usually, with these products that's paying out quarter dividends, monthly dividends, and now you have a lot of ETFs or exchange traded funds that are paying out these larger, return on investments essentially, that are even just seeing, 80%, returns at a given time frame. So with Misty, the company's yield max, it just kind of just explaining you
I got
now
so much yield max. I got
yeah.
a lot.
I love yield max, and I know
I got all of them. I'm sorry.
Which ones? No.
I got all of them. I got like about 500 in each of the yield max.
Okay, yep. It's like Alti, Misty, Tisley,
ELTY, a bunch of them.
Mm-hmm. He put you on?
No, I think I informed him, but I've been working on it for about a year.
He told me about a lot of yield max, but you put me up on Misty.
Okay. Yeah, so pretty much with these type of products, and there's a variety of them, but like yield max specifically when you're talking about income generating. So this is one company, and there's many others that are going to pretty much start solving the issue of, when people used to talk about universal income, this is kind of what they're going to start solving, or pretty much is these option trading strategies called selling cover calls, where you pretty much take, based on the underlying stock, its volatility, you're selling these cover calls to basically extract premiums out of this volatility, which is just the price action of a giving stock, and it pays out, monthly income. Okay. And usually your more sophisticated investors will do this on their own, but now it's more mainstream where you now have these companies that's doing these income generating strategies on your behalf. So instead of actually trading options, you're just like, okay, I'm going to invest in, a Misty, which stands for MicroStrategy Yield. MicroStrategy is the largest publicly traded company that holds the most Bitcoin on its balance sheet, over 640,000. So they're kind of the front runners of this new financial ecosystem that's going to essentially provide these credit instruments to individual investors. So like one individual, or this one family I was talking to earlier this week, he just retired, and he's looking, he was telling me his annuities pretty much just losing its value day by day, and like the returns are just something small. And I started preaching, or not preaching, but I always sound like I'm preaching. Pretty much started, informing him about, there are different credit instruments that's providing higher yields, and they're perpetual, so they should, pretty much go for life. And they can do it because now they have a hard asset, which is, is backed by Bitcoin collateral. Because once again, it's a hard asset. It's going to, constantly go up because it's a scarce asset. Can't be manipulated, can't be inflated. It's mathematical certainty, at the end of the day. You can almost calculate what, the price is going to be at or how many Bitcoins will be mined at a given range and stuff like that. Like, it gets to a point where you can actually solve the equation yourself to be like, okay, this is where things are going to be projected over the next 4, 8, 12 years.
So what is this investment strategy you're talking about right now?
This is still, so I was talking about micro strategy, now named strategy, but Misty is Misty pretty much is the stock that traces synthetically the price action of micro strategy.
So someone would have to meet with you and say, hey, I'm a financial advisor to a
financial coach. Yeah,
coach. So somebody can meet up.
Oh yeah, none of this is financial advice. It's all financial. I call it financial awareness, and on top of that, financial entertainment.
We're barbershop talking.
Thank you for that.
But now again, hypothetically, if I'm sitting on a few dollars, $1,000, 2,000, not much, and I want to meet with you, what can you do with that? Or is that too low of a number to start with? Or
I wouldn't say it's too low. I would say start allocating that towards Bitcoin. Okay, so
I got 0.000 of a.
So like with Bitcoin, you don't need to buy a full Bitcoin. That's the biggest thing. Is one Bitcoin right now is trading at 115,000. It's broken down into smaller units called Satoshis. So it's named after Satoshi Nakamoto, and it's 100 million Satoshis in one Bitcoin. Okay, that's how small the units get. So just think of it as like cents. There's 100 cents in $1. Okay, so it's 100 million Satoshis into one Bitcoin. So you call it stacking stats, basically. That's what they call it. And essentially, you could put $1 in. So if you look at, so even at disturbing, pretty much output of what I was telling you guys, where the dollar's losing, a 7,000% a day, and Bitcoin is accumulating about 1/4%. So even if you do $1, just think about the difference and the gap that's going to be incurring as you're constantly putting, even if it's $5 a day. So for me, I'm constantly daily putting money into Bitcoin because I look at it as me as preserving future labor or future time, future energy, essentially, because I know the value is going to be there versus when we borrow nowadays or, companies do stock buybacks or something. It's like you're banking that the dollar is still going to have value, 10, 20 years from now, when we all know that it's really not. And more of these companies are going to get Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So going into, Misty and, kind of I was talking about, universal income, you're going to now have these products where, and that's why you have to start investing now, where you can put yourself in a position where you can buy these type of products. So, most dividend paying, I would say funds pay out usually about 20 to 30 cents a quarter on the dollar. Okay. You now have these type of ETFs that's paying out now monthly or even weekly $1, per share, so instead of you getting 20 to 30 cents on the dollar a quarter, you're now getting $1 for dollar, monthly or even weekly. Okay. So you want to put yourself in a position where you can actually, starting at the basics, you got to take account of where you're at financially. So it's always, okay, you got to put together a budget. And a budget just pretty much just tells you how you're supposed to spend your money for that given time period or that month, okay?
Now, I do want to ask you the question. Recently, we just went through a hell of a pullback. Everything's in red. I just want to know your thoughts on that.
Is it a pullback or just certain people that's trading get liquidated? That was over leveraged.
Or a correction, by any chance?
I mean, correction is usually considered like 30%. I mean, we'll say it's a correction, but Bitcoin only really dropped like 10%, but it's already bouncing back.
So would this be a perfect time for anybody who's not in to get in?
Yes. Because we're pretty much, this is the quarter that I was saying you just want to stack up. Because 2026, we're going to be off to the races. With the going back to the legislation that I mentioned, from the Genius Act already passed, and you got the Anti-CBDC Act, and then the big one is the Clarity Act. Those are going to get passed by the end of this year. So we're going to be off to the races in 2026.
You think we're going to that $200,000?
I say by the end of this year, my price prediction is 150. I think on average, moving forward, we're going to average about 100,000 per Bitcoin in growth over the next 10 years. So
That's a big number right there.
I know. Ooh. I mean, so it's like in 10 years, if you know Bitcoin is going to be at 1 million, I mean, you're going to 10x your money from here, versus once again, if you're only holding USD or you have these small, yield, bearing accounts where they're only giving you 3%, 4%. It's eroding your purchasing power. Cost of living is going to keep going up. Energy costs are going to keep going up because as AI and robotics and even Bitcoin keeps making a larger footprint in our society, energy costs are going to, rise.
Now, you might have asked my question.
Go ahead.
Now, let me also ask you this. When we talk about, I want to talk about the economy and the government shutdown. Mm-hmm. And I just want to know your thoughts on that. They're talking about right now, October 15th. Is the last day or the day that the U.S. military is not getting paid. Mm-hmm. They're going to stop their checks. So I just want to know your insight on that.
Well, see, this is why Bitcoin is so perfect because it's decentralized. It doesn't really, it's going to keep, producing block after block after block, keep validating block after block, So, within that system itself, that's where you get your sovereignty. That's where you get your freedom instead of being reliant. And that's another thing. It's like, you don't want to be reliant on the government. We don't want the government to expand itself because as we all know, it's inefficient and there's so much corruption. Because a lot of what the government is, okay, they'll have these nice name programs and then they'll, say like, okay, we're going to fund this program with, 200 million. And let's be honest, maybe only 100 million makes it down to, the little person where they actually see the values of, the different services that are being offered to them versus the other 100 million is just maybe certain tax write-offs or is going, into different accounts, for other corporations and, just, behind the deal handshakes and all this other stuff. So you don't want the government to be big. You don't. So with this government shutdown, I mean, I think a lot of this was already planned. I think most of the stuff that's happening in our economy was already planned, years ago, to be honest, So when you talk about this great reset, I just think if it was all part of the plan, I know during 2020 they used to say, oh, this is the new normal. I think all of this kind of just played into.
It was a plan, like you said, it was, Agenda 2030, in other words.
And the thing is, I don't want to, because after a while we start talking like, damn, it's so apocalyptic. And that's why at the end of the day with, Bitcoin and this specifically, and there are, other currencies, but specific Bitcoin, because I do, like I said, believe it's going to be the foundational, layer and the hard collateral that pretty much is going to preserve a lot of, even the US dollar in a sense, because they're going to now just use this as a way of collateral to be able to do everything else that they want to do. I think it's just a way to pretty much be reliant on yourself. You may not get that FDIC insured of 250,000, but at least it's your keys. That you preserve the computational energy and thermodynamic power that it took to mint this one specific Bitcoin. So, in 2009, 2010, you can mine a Bitcoin on your phone. And the protocol advanced so much, now you have these huge data centers.
That's true.
So it's like you're preserving, once again, all this labor and physical labor that you're doing now, you're doing it for dollars. But we already know 5-10 years, that dollar that you work for today is losing its spending power, its purchasing power, its value. So, but if I put $20 into a Bitcoin, I know 5-10 years from now, that $20 or that $5 I put into it is going to appreciate, So it's just simple things like that. And none of this is to get rich quick. It's just being disciplined. And it's just starting where you're at. And it goes back to, I was saying, put together a budget just to see where you're at. If you have your expenses are exceeding your income, your net income, then anything you do is just going to be like you're in a hamster wheel. Okay.
Can I ask you a question? Mm-hmm. Like back to our community, for example,
mm-hmm.
What do you think besides spending? Because I know our community have a spending problem.
Yeah.
I know. Besides that, what do you think are the other problems when it comes to our community, when it comes to finance?
I mean, I think we've already made up in our mind. And I think this is more so, this is getting kind of maybe biological and genetics and DNA where, because a lot of our blood, we have our ancestors' blood is running through us, so a lot of like the fear and all this other stuff that went through their system is running through our vein system. A lot of it, I think we just kind of checked out of the system where we're just like, okay, well, I can't get ahead anyway, or, the system is designed, for me not to prosper, or it's all against me. So I think it's just that mentality of just like, okay, I can never be, wealthy in this particular way. I either got to hit a quick lick, I got to gamble it,
Yes.
I got to hit the lottery, so it's these quick fixes instead
I got to
of
grind it out, get rich or die trying,
Yeah. Yeah. When it really in all of that, and what I'm saying is, if you was to do what I'm telling you now, just put $1 into Bitcoin or $1 into an asset that appreciates, you're already putting yourself in a better position than if you just didn't do anything or you're trying to hit licks, basically, So I think it's just the mentality. I think it's just, it's not a priority in our, like, people don't even like to talk about, their own money, like how much you're making, in our community. But if you go to other communities, like, okay, your net worth, I own this grocery store, I own this, like I do these things, so it's like taboo, it's like, George, why are you asking me how much I make? It's almost like asking a woman her weight, you know what I'm saying? When it's just like, man, I mean, I'm sorry, that's the hard truth. You may have to just, hit the gym a little bit, but we hate hard truths and we just think everything is just against us. And trust me, I get that the systems for a very long time, and even to this day, has been, designed to, work against us or a lot of these obstacles. But I think now in today's world, there's so much information where there's really no more excuse, where if you want to know something or do something, and there's a lot of avenues and there are a lot of approaches to actually doing it. So yes, the system really hasn't changed from even 50 years ago. But I always tell people to read this book, Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice. So there's a black version of this, Think and Grow Rich. I think Napoleon Hill wrote the original, and then Dennis Kimbrough, he wrote the black version. It's the black edition. And
I didn't know about that. Dennis Kimbrough?
Mm-hmm. Write that down.
Yeah, Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice. And what's different with this book is it's still the same book of Think and Grow Rich, but all the examples they use are from black business owners and black entrepreneurs from the 1700s, 1800s, 1900s.
So it hasn't changed.
So the thing is, and you read these examples of how these people apply these principles of building wealth and riches or whatever, and you're like, man, if this person was able to get, build wealth, and you can all say, well, there's only one person out of a million, but it's like, at the end of the day, if this person was able to build wealth through slavery,
Frederick Douglass,
Jim Crow,
like T.J. Walker, all of them,
all that. Yeah. So it's just like these people was able to build wealth during those times when it's just like, now what excuses do we really have? Most of us hide behind screens. Most of us don't even know how to interact with most people anymore. All the information is out there. I honestly think our biggest problem is we have information overload. So it's one of those things that, like, it's not that, oh, well, I don't know, like financial literacy, I just don't know, it wasn't taught to us. It's like, you can Google this. And Google now has transformed into AI. Most things, search engines have pretty much transformed into AI, where anything you want to know or learn, you can learn. I think the issue now is people don't know how to critically think, or synthesize information. That's the biggest issue. Yeah. So I could take information, and I'm glad I grew up, and I think we're all the same age, in a time where you still had to use your brain. Yeah. Like,
I remember we had to go in encyclopedias to find things. We didn't have this.
Yeah. And it's like one of those things, like, if you don't use it, you lose it. So the more and more we don't use our brains, which most people, don't anymore, then, yeah, you're losing just the basic functions of critical thinking, reasoning, logic, things of that nature, And now we're just taking it to AI and letting it be simulated and all this other stuff.
Give me the answer, yeah. Mm-hmm. I do got a few questions, though. Your thoughts on monthly dividend stocks, and are any monthly dividend stocks in the S&P 500? I don't believe so, but I didn't know if you might know.
I mean, the main ones I know, like Schwab, I forget their dividend portfolio, but you can, if you just type, main, like top 5 ETF dividend paying stocks, most of them are quarterly though. So it's these newer products that are paying out monthly. So like your yield
ticker symbol O, ticker symbol O, realty income.
Yeah, but those are, I don't know about.
That's monthly.
That's monthly. Okay, yeah. How long has the fund been, inception, or how long?
I want to say since 2006.
Okay,
is when they got on market.
So what's the dividend payouts usually?
4 or 6%. No, wait, I can't remember.
Okay,
I can't remember.
But
I know I got it though. I got it.
But it's still small.
I sold it all, and now I'm buying it back. So now, about $20 a month. In dividends, I get about $20 a month though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I say a good one for me is American Healthcare Realty.
Okay,
that's a good one. I don't have much investment to it, but it did pay me a couple of dollars more than what I thought it would.
Mm-hmm. So for me, I've pretty much consolidated my holdings to, I mean, if it's not Bitcoin, related, then that's just, so I look at Bitcoin as like my savings account now. Okay. I try not to hold cash unless I absolutely have to, like if I'm going out. But everything I do is between credit, and you got to be disciplined. I will say that. So like for me, when I use credit, I pay it off that same month. Okay, so I'm not collecting the interest or anything like that. But I don't want to hold dollars. Like I just genuinely don't. Okay.
What about all the other Bitcoins like HBAR and
I stick to
Solano.
Yeah.
Solano.
There's nothing wrong with any of those. And it's funny when I look at the communities and they're always bickering with one another, like XRP or Ripple is better than Bitcoin and HBAR. And it's just like they all serve different, purposes in this financial ecosystem. Okay. So it's just like, I mean, why are we really competing when at the end of the day, we just need crypto to succeed, which it will, but I focus on, like I said, Bitcoin because I understand it. And I understand the scarcity factor. And I don't think people are realizing scarcity. I keep saying scarcity.
I try.
Because even gold isn't like there. You can always pretty much get to more gold. You know what I'm saying?
I told somebody a while ago, if they ever put a cap on like Doge, you're going to see it just take up overnight. But
Exactly.
they haven't capped it yet. So many stock cryptos they haven't capped. Once that cap go, it's soaring. But you mind if I ask another question?
Sure. Yeah.
Can you simplify options trading? If
you can.
I mean, pretty much. I mean, because it's divided up into 100 contracts, so you could essentially, I would say, it's almost like a leverage bet. Okay, so say for instance, instead of buying a full share of something, you still believe in this price action. You'll say, okay, I'll take out one contract against it, and whatever its price movement is amplified by 100. Okay, and vice versa. Okay, so I would simply just say it's a leverage bet on a stock that you necessarily don't want to go full blown price into, essentially, if that makes sense. But that's probably the easiest way I can really go for it.
Now I do got a question to ask you. Are you a person that believes in manifestation?
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you also believe that wealth starts in the mind?
Yeah.
And all that good
It's
stuff?
all, I mean, yes. So, it's one of those things where I'm a big believer on, because the way I interact with money is very spiritual, for sure. If you hate money or hate talking about it, that's just how you're going to attract money. If you hate and we all hate spending money or got to pay bills, but that's your relationship with money.
It's supposed to flow.
Yeah, exactly. So just look at it as like a bad relationship. You hate being around somebody and, you still got to interact with them. They're your coworker. Then that's just the type of friction you're going to create. So if you're somebody like, oh, I just want to be rich, but you hate talking about it or interacting with it, or you get pissed off every time you have to pay a bill, then you're not going to accumulate as much, and then money attracts money. Okay, so of course it's easier to make more money when you have money, and then also money like smart money, basically. So if you say I want to be a millionaire, but the thing is, money's going to be like, okay, well, what are you going to do with me once you have me? Type thing. If you don't have a plan for your money, then it's going to go to somebody else that knows how to fulfill the money's desire, essentially.
That keep it in the flow, currency,
because it wants to expand, it wants to grow, essentially. So yes, I definitely believe in manifestation. It starts from, I would say, it starts in the head, and you got to believe that it's possible for you. I think most people say they want to be rich or have money, but they don't actually envision themselves actually having money and how they interact with it, So for me, it's like, I can wait 10 years because I know where I'm going to be at in 10 years, God willing type thing. And, for me, it's like, I'm just enjoying this journey. I think about how even when I think about college and I think about, pledging and stuff like that, most of our stories always come from leading up to the actual pledging process. Okay. Like you get the rewards from it after you cross and all this other stuff. But all the memories that my line brothers and I share is from the leading up to that. You know what I'm saying? Like those are, and it's just like in anything. Think about the work that you put in on building something, a project. It's all the memories you have of like all the effort and time and energy. That's the most fulfilling part. And then it's like by the time you actually get what you wanted, finally once, you cross or you complete a project, it was like, oh yeah, this was just a long time coming. So like when people's like, oh, Des, you made so much money in this or did that, it's like, bro, that was just a long time coming. To me, that happened yesterday type thing,
Another way, you have to feel it already happened before it has to happen.
Yeah, be a present in the moment and like it's actually yours.
You want to hear something funny? I be talking to him sometimes. He be making fun of me a lot. Like case in example, I said, when he say, maybe it might happen, I said, no, it already has happened.
Yeah.
You just got to put yourself in that position.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really just as simple as that. And, you know, one of the books that I liked reading in the beginning, like in my early 20s, was like Working with the Laws, which was like 11 universal principles. And it talks about like the law of attraction, which is just one aspect of it. But it also has a law of thinking, law of compensation. So there's different universal principles. Like if you apply these principles, you will have a more fulfilling, balanced life, essentially. But money definitely is a spiritual thing, and I'm definitely one of those people that believe, because I know for a fact, or in a sense, for me, from my experiences of, okay, if you disperse all the money, it'll go back into the same 20%. You know, it's like one of those things like 20% always does 80% of the work. And I even think about even in my workshops where, you know, I have 15, kind of like I mentioned earlier, like I have 15 or 20 people in my class, and there's always one person that gets it and they're the most excited about it. So even with this audience now, most people that will probably listen to it, you're going to have a couple of people that really just like, okay, I'm off to the races with this, you know? And that's kind of just where I'm at, where, you know, in the beginning, it was kind of disheartening because it's just, I know what's about to come. I know this wealth gap is about to get crazy, you know, and I know that, you know, especially in our communities, individuals are probably going to struggle more leading into the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And that's why we are having these conversations now to prepare.
And, you know, you might have asked my question real quick. I want, since we're in that subject matter, where do we get the mindset by thinking all rich people are bad?
I mean, we've seen in cartoons, you know.
It's just opposites. They're not you in the moment. Sometimes it's
because we see Scrooge McDuck, him being, you know, stuff like that. But where we get that from?
Well, because it wants us to. So this is going to get kind of like my conspiracy on it. It's not even conspiracy. It's just I know the propaganda behind it. It wants us to hate capitalism, basically, you know, and it wants us to believe that if you have a lot of money, you're innately evil. Okay, so that what keeps us from, because black people, the thing that's funny about black people is that we're actually very conservative people, you know, like think about our family, think about our traditions and how we interact with family. We actually have very conservative values. It's just over the decades, you know, especially since the 60s, you know, a lot of legislation that was passed was putting us in our mind that we're very progressive, but we don't tolerate a lot of nonsense.
Democrats.
Yeah. So we don't tolerate a lot of nonsense, but if you really think about the black community, we're very conservative, traditional people.
They still eat soul food plates. I don't get it.
You know, so what was the question and the thing you was asking me about? What's the train of thought I was going with this?
Well, I asked you about rich people being bad.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it's all in. So once again, it goes to just innately just believing that if you have money, you're bad. So it goes with the whole moral consciousness. Okay, so it's embedded in us of just like, okay, well, if I have a lot of something, you know, I should basically, what the Bible says, I should, you know, quote unquote, you know, struggle. You know, it's more of a virtuous value to struggle. You know, not to have much. So
the meek. You know,
yeah, exactly. So we actually take that serious and just like, okay, well, I'm going to be rewarded in the afterlife. So our society has convinced us that, you know, struggle now, you know, don't enjoy the fruits of your labor now, because either in retirement, even in retirement, if you just put, you know, your money in this 401k and, you know, like, you know, if you only live to be 65, you're going to be good. But it's like pushing everything off into retirement, where we already know that retirement is becoming less and less likely, you know, than what our parents' generation is experiencing.
And what if you don't make it to 65?
Exactly.
I know, where it's this Family Dollar I go to. It's this lady, every time I see her there, I'm like, you should have been retired years ago.
Yeah.
She is like,
I mean, a lot of, okay, and I get like, even when you retire, because it's one of those things where, you know, people that don't do anything after retire, it's like a stat where within a couple of years, they pretty much passing away. Yeah. So I definitely believe that hopefully most people find something they enjoy or some type of hobby to keep them proactive, their mind going, their physical body moving, and things of that nature. So having money is not an evil thing. And the way I look at it is, if you're broke, you can't help anybody. You can't do anything. You're just a burden to society. You're a burden to the system. So if you think the world is corrupt, great. Make a ton of money and then do something about it. You know what I'm saying? But you're not going to do anything without actually having money. You know, nobody's going to take me serious if, you know, I'm preaching all this stuff and then it's just like, well, Desmond, you know, you're sleeping on a cot in the back or anything like that, you know? So it's just like, you know, they definitely want to understand, you know, the discipline that it takes. And they want to see the results of that having that discipline, essentially. But having money is not bad, but it is designed to keep us pretty much trapped where it was like, if we start accumulating a certain amount, then, you know, we're innately just bad people and that, you know, we can't do any good with money. More people that have affected my life in a positive way had money versus people that have been poor. I don't know anybody that is broke that has influenced my life in a very positive way. You know what I'm saying? They can speak good words, but it's just like, I mean, your words is really only going to take me so far when I really need something to go down, you know?
Now, can I say this? I don't think like you said, rich people ain't the problem. I think greedy people are the problem.
Well, yeah. And I mean, it's one of those things where it's just like, you can't label one thing out of and generalize everything else. You know, it's like one bad apple, you know, I mean, you can rotten them all, but it's one of those things where it's just like you have good doctors and bad doctors. You have good rich people and you have bad rich people, you know, and it's one of those things that they always say money just amplifies who you are.
And you don't even have to have a lot of money to be greedy.
Yeah. You know, poor people, I mean, man, poor people can be greedy. Like, man, oh, this is mine, man. Like, you know, like.
My pork chop.
Yeah. Like, I was like, well, dang. Like, you know, learn to share, you know, stuff like that. But I think building wealth pretty much, it builds character, you know, at the end of the day. Because it ain't instant gratification. It is delayed gratification. You know, but I know what I'm doing now, it may not be flashy. It's going to be boring as hell. But I know I'm going to be in a different position 10 years versus somebody that is telling themselves, I just need 2 jobs. And there's nothing wrong with working, because I'm definitely not one of those people like, oh, don't work, you got to be an entrepreneur type thing. It's just have a plan for your money. Just know if you're going to be busting your butt for money, then make sure that your money is busting butt for you.
Now, I do got 3 more questions.
Yeah.
The first one is just what's 3 stocks to invest in? Not Bitcoin, though. I know you're going to say it.
Well, because once again, it comes down to your risk tolerance. You know, I'm all about growth.
Or 3 good stocks to invest in, if that's a good way to word it.
I would go, okay, honestly, I would do NVIDIA, MSTR, and...
I got that too, MSTR.
I'm actually going to probably either do maybe like Planeteer or Tesla, but I'm going to do NVIDIA, MicroStrategy, and probably another tech stock. So yeah, either like a Tesla or a Planeteer. And if you just want something to like, okay, I don't know these companies and I just need something to like get me in the market, then SPYG fund.
What about SoFi?
Yeah, that's cool.
That's a good.
You know, I could have got it in NVIDIA.
Like, you're like, man, what's a good stock? It's just one of those. Okay, so what I always say is, okay, where do you see the economy going in 5-10 years? I know they're investing heavy because you can just see what this administration, where they're focusing their money is, and it's all in AI. It's all in tech. You know what I'm saying? So, in robotics. So, if they're going to put all their money towards that over the next 5 years, 5-10 years, that's where I'm going to put my money. And in water. I guess there's you know, water's definitely going to be needed. So, there's one called FlowX. Which is a water ETF.
I need that one.
Yeah, because all this energy that's going to be, you know, utilized with all these data centers.
That's the ticker symbol, FLOWX.
Yep, FlowX. Yeah.
Thank you, my brother.
Yeah, I could have got NVIDIA when it was like $50. My coworker kept telling me about it. He had
got in at 20. Yeah,
and I didn't do it. And he told good presentation, everything, and I just listened to him, and I didn't get it. And
What
I still
made you
didn't
not
want.
do it?
I think I put my money into something else because I told him about a stock too. That's back when I was doing Realty Income, ticker symbol O. And, you know, again, I profited off that. But, man, that NVIDIA, man, I should have did it.
Yeah.
Ticker symbol O, again, monthly dividend. And I'm a dividend type of person. That.
Yeah. And I mean, that's really the goal. So, you know, kind of going into your dividend, it's like, okay, so you want to position yourself where, so the play when I think you and I was first talking, where I'm like, okay, I'm buying up Bitcoin. And then now you have it where you can borrow against your Bitcoin, okay? And then you can put it in some of these ETFs that's paying out these higher yields. So that's pretty much your cash flow. So because I don't care about cash or whatever, I just take a portion of that cash and put, you know, I'll divide it up in 3 ways where I'm putting it back into Bitcoin. So a third of it is going back into Bitcoin to keep boosting my stack. A third of it goes back into that ETF so it can accumulate more shares so it can give me higher payouts. And then a third goes to taxes. And then maybe like 10% of that goes to like just managing the collateral loan that you took out. Okay. So the thing is you have an asset that's constantly going up. and then you have this ETF or this dividend, fund that's paying you out. Use the cash, buy more Bitcoin, and you buy more of that stock, and it's just this cash cow machine that essentially just, they call it the flywheel, but that's pretty much what happens. Okay, so that's pretty much what you and I was, discussing when we was talking about Misty, where it's to the point where it allows me to still work my nonprofit job as a financial coach. But because these yields are the way they are, it's putting me in a phenomenal position, even with it being as low as it is gone, essentially, because it's dropped significantly. And I'm not really talking about the price, but even the yields are amazing. Because remember when I first talked to you, I was like, as long as it's still paying out $1 a month, I'm good. Like, you're not going to find any product that's essentially paying you at 100%. And I know some, it's like, oh, well, that can't last long. It's net asset value. But that's the beautiful of Bitcoin. Because all this stuff is backed by Bitcoin.
And I gotta thank you about that, Misty, because it gave me a hell of a bag.
And especially now, I think you've probably seen where it's going towards weekly payouts versus monthly. And I take that because I was just thinking the other day, I was like, monthly payouts are awesome, but there's movements I want to keep taking advantage of, and just providing that extra cash flow and liquidity for me to just more flexible with my money is phenomenal. And because that's the demand, so it's just having cash flow at a weekly, monthly basis. And then you'll probably start seeing yields that's maybe even paying out daily. Yeah. We'll probably get to that point.
Yeah, I got another question. Just hypothetically, if we ever wanted our gold back and said no Federal Reserve, no centralized banks, what do you think that'd do?
If we want gold back?
If we, because right now we don't have gold, we got fiat because they took our gold.
Right, we don't know. What was it, Fort Knox, where we're trying to see where the gold went?
Yeah, so I'm just saying, hypothetically, what do you think would happen? Like, if we want our gold back, we don't want to take this currency. Do you think
I just think it will be a contraction in the economy. I think it will make us more disciplined on how we leverage. I think the biggest issue is just leverage. You talk about options, all that is leverage, So it's like, if you don't have as much money, it's like, okay, I can leverage this, and it gives me the optionality and that's kind of where the option income from is like, okay, I can leverage this. And if it does what I think it's going to do, it gives me enough to actually exercise this option so I can actually own the stock. So I'll start off not being able to own the stock, but with me leveraging it and, I was right on my prediction, puts me in the green, then I have the optionality to use that money and convert it into, actual shares. So, and I think that's when we talk about the correction that happened the other day, is just people are over leveraged. Like, people are trying to make quick money and they're over, like, it's like, I don't have the money to do this, but I'm going to leverage it out. Where it's like, okay, I'll put up $100, but I'm going to, put a 5X leverage on it, 8X leverage on it, 10X leverage. I mean, sure, you could try to make quick money, but we've all learned, quick money, always, you're going to lose it just as fast. So, I mean, gold, it's one of those things for me, I look at it as just gold will always be an awesome reserve, but it's still kind of going back to an old system, okay? Because now you got to think about it. Gold itself, when I talk about, it being portable and the flow of it, gold still isn't that portable. You know what I'm saying? You're not going over, the Detroit River with all this gold blocks in your, in your pants pocket. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I say I think it will contract the economy and just like liquidity factors and just, things of that nature. So, just with Bitcoin itself, and I'm going to harp on Bitcoin, it's just, you don't have to worry about maintenance or none of that. So even like with real estate, I love real estate, but you don't have to deal with tenants. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to, deal with, maintenance, utilities, things like that, paying those bills, things breaking down or, what have you. So with Bitcoin, there's no maintenance. The system, does it itself. Essentially, it's portable, it's divisible. So it's just like you're constantly carrying your phone with you. So it's just like, you have it with you. And, you can keep it in a cold wallet, for extra layers of security. You can leverage against it. It's an appreciating asset. There's only going to be a certain amount. So the biggest thing is what we're talking about today is you have hundreds of trillions of dollars that's getting ready to get put into this cryptocurrency. So, and I mean just the crypto market in general. So this is, we can kind of, end it off with this of just being part of this great wealth transfer. You have this administration that want to start allowing 401ks to invest in.
Yes.
I hope so.
Yeah, in the crypto.
Yes.
I mean, that's trillions of dollars. You have these pension funds that's on the sidelines that's ready. These insurance companies that, has their own certain guidelines that they got to follow to pump, to pretty much give their own investors a certain amount of yield and returns and stuff like that. We're talking trillions of dollars that's getting ready to get poured into this, especially starting in 2026. So right now, you can at least front run at least a lot of this growth that's going to happen. So, you mentioned 200,000. I mean, that's definitely doable. My price targets are very conservative. I think we'll finish out this year at 150. It's October 12th, 2025.
That's still a great number.
Yeah.
That's still a great number.
So, and I think next year we'll easily be at 200,000. And then from there, I just think 100,000 each year. And then, a lot of billionaires. And it's so funny because, we got these billionaires like Jack Dorsey, who founded Twitter. He's invested in Bitcoin. He has this black company. You got Adam Beck. Like, you just got Elon. Like, you got all these billionaires that's buying this stuff up. They're distracting us with news that don't matter. Government shutdown. And that's another thing. So it's like the government shutdown. It's like, so now it's like you have certain, like,
the CK incident.
So it's just like you're pretty much locking out our people, or the people that don't really know, or and it's just like these moves are being made behind the scenes, and then like you're like, oh, but Bitcoin is a scam. But it's just like, I mean, I'm just following the money here, and I just see a lot of actual billionaires that have track records that obviously see something in this emerging asset class. So I may not fully understand Bitcoin. That's why I say just start off with $1, $2, $5, and just study it. So a good book is The Bitcoin Standard. And what I like about The Bitcoin Standard is, the last 2 chapters are designated towards Bitcoin itself, but it gives you the history of money. And you'll understand, once you understand the history of money and what is money, because that's the biggest thing. People just have to be educated on what exactly is money. And at the end of the day, money should be viewed as, a form of, or a value of a medium of exchange. It could be used as an investment vehicle, digital gold, things of that nature. But but ultimately money should be preserving the actual labor, time, and energy that went into a specific product or service. Okay, so that's to us wages. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, I worked my 8 hours. That was the time. I put my energy into this, my labor. And now this is what they paid me out in a paycheck. Okay, so Bitcoin pretty much does that, in with the mining and all the other stuff, where it's taking all this computational power to mine, solve these mathematical puzzles that gets harder and harder to mine this Bitcoin. So it took effort. Basically, it took mathematical effort to solve these problems. You're not necessarily exerting that effort, but keep in mind that's just kind of the way we're going, where there's not enough value on physical labor anymore, because now you have these data centers and AIs and this technology that is basically monetizing energy, information, and stuff like that.
Hey, could we speak on AI for a minute? Because I'm not trying to go too in depth, but we talk off the
You can
air.
talk a little bit more about AI, more so than me.
Well, I just want to talk about, what we spoke about. I'm going to leave it strictly at that. I seen a device, a prototype for a device that can, I'm not going to go into detail about it, but that can replace the trucking and the railroad industry. Some type of shit like a transformer, some type of shit you'll see in the movie. And when I saw that immediately popped in my head. They don't need us anymore for the work.
No, they don't.
They don't need to immigrate more people here. They don't need.
Well, that's another thing. Yeah, because the immigration, the whole thing, that's just another distraction where it's like, okay, they're gonna get rid of all these people, whatever, all this, like, because they already have it set up where they know how they're gonna replace this labor.
They don't even need us to make kids anymore. Look at the birthing numbers. How many times we got to talk about that?
Oh man, I'm gonna have a robot girlfriend and all like look how you talk to even Grok and like the wife.
Bro, do you see the Japan problem right now, bro? They got cuddle bars.
Yeah.
They different though, man. I need me a natural woman.
No, you're right. I'm not saying that. Yeah. You're right.
For Demolition Man, they put the helmets on.
Keep in mind though, this is our generation. I always think about, because we're all millennials, pretty much, and we see it. I think we're kind of the last hybrid of traditional and kind of still understanding all this new age stuff, or whatever. But we need organic. I mean, once you start getting down to the generations under us, they probably don't see it as much as a necessity because they was born into this technology. So,
and these are the kids of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. They came of age during 2020, so So
do you think the fortunate kids of this generation will be the ones raised by their grandparents who still got the tradition? Because it's a lot of. Yeah.
Well, so even just, when I talk to individuals, and I told you how like 90% are single mothers that I, work with, it's interesting, or even when I talk about my friends in general, so it's not even just specifically, the people I assist, but just my group of friends. The kids are being raised by grandparents, basically, because still we want to all still hang out and do all this other stuff. Like I think about Halloween, how that's not even really a kid's holiday anymore. Like everybody really participates in Halloween, go to Halloween parties, dress up. Like that's now.
Ladies, I love the way y'all dress.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Trick-or-treating is not a thing anymore.
Yeah. Like it's really, we took over, a lot of, like even I think about, and I mean, I participate in all this stuff as well. But, you think about the shows, like, we'll still watch, like, Marvel cartoon. Like, I think about X-Men 97. I just started watching that series.
I still watch Doug.
Yeah, but it's just like, we're older now. We didn't see our parents watching cartoons when we were kids, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it's because we have this technology where we can easily access, all the nostalgia that we grew up with, basically, I
do want to change the topic just a little bit. You being the Morehouse man, a lot of us, like myself, who don't know what it's like being on the HBCU campus, what was the vibe like?
Oh, I loved it. I actually went to an all-boys Catholic high school. So I didn't actually plan on going to an HBCU. I always thought I was going to go to just like a bigger, university. But I think actually getting out of high school, I was just like, you know what? I just want to complete pretty much the Black experience, essentially. It was amazing. And especially just the ratios for, women and men down there. It's just ridiculous. And then you got Clark Atlanta, where their ratios is crazy. You got Spelman right there. Pretty much Atlanta itself, it's like 20-1. And
Freaknik.
Yeah. See, so I got there when they tried to do Freaknik in like 2008. Like they tried to bring it back, but of course, we missed it from like the 80s and 90s and all that stuff.
So you going to an all boys high school? It was no prom, I assume.
We had prom. So
they had a sister school. Okay.
Yeah, we had a sister school, and it actually forced me, my friends and I, to actually go to other high schools a lot. Go to a lot of their football games, and that's how I was able to really enjoy a lot of my social experience in high school. So like my college, or not my college, so the high school I went to, it definitely was a college prep school, and it prepared me for college itself. But the social experience I definitely received from just going to other, high schools and stuff.
What high school was that?
I went to Brother Rice.
Oh, you went to Brother Rice. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I do got one more question for you. Since you grew up in Southfield, I just want to know, why do y'all rep Detroit and not Southfield?
I call Southfield Detroit Heights now, but I think it's more so just, especially outside of Michigan, I won't, because I rep Southfield. So even when I'm in, talking to individuals.
You're speaking for everybody, not just you specifically with this question. I
think because I feel like people, if you're in Michigan, I think we don't really rep Detroit. If we're in Michigan, we're talking to somebody that's from Michigan. I think we say Detroit when we're outside of Michigan.
That's true, and that's beautiful.
Because it's one of those things, even like if you talk to somebody that's from Flint, they're like, no, I'm from Flint. They're not, repping Detroit or none of that stuff. It's like, no, like we're Flint, and I get that. So when I'm talking to people here in Michigan, I definitely rep Southfield for sure. And then once you get out the state is when you'll say, okay, Detroit.
Ask him where he from.
Oh, Yaktown, Pontiac.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm the only native here.
Oh, Detroit, yeah.
But can I also add this to it? Now, to be fair, Southfield, it's the two main high schools, Southfield High, Southfield Lathrop, has some of the baddest females.
Baddies.
We always
everywhere.
say Michigan has some of the best, beautiful looking women for sure, and I do agree with that. When you go to other states, it's just like, it's just something about Detroit women that,
And most of them are still natural. Y'all starting to fade out, though. But, I've been seeing BBLs, but most of y'all still natural.
They love their BBLs. Man.
Well, that comes from this generation, you know what I mean? Mostly, I want to say.
I'm just saying, what if a natural girl, want to take your investment dollars and upgrade her body? Go ahead.
If you don't get that bullshit out of my face, bitch.
I had to ask.
Where the fuck do you get your positioning?
That's all I have to say about that.
That was my final question, though.
Well, that was my.
We love our sisters.
One more. Do you have any knowledge of life insurance policies or anything?
No, I'm gonna stay away from that. Just, most I would say get a whole cash value life insurance.
Okay.
And then, it's always one of those things. What would the Rockefellers do? I would recommend that book when you're talking about life insurance.
That's a book? Oh, I thought you was asking a question.
What would the Rockefellers do? It basically it tells you how to transform your life insurance into your own personal bank, so you can pretty much borrow against it. But once again, I look at Bitcoin kind of like that, So, but yeah, you get your life insurance for sure. It's another asset.
Well, I have more questions, but we at the hour and a half mark. But I
got time if you got a couple other ones.
Well, okay. I'm just limited to one question. Just one quick question. I know you mentioned it 3 or 4 times as far as our people in the future. I know Bitcoin is number 1 on your list. Invest in Bitcoin. But as far as, like you said before, we still got a majority of people out here working, trying to try to get it together, stuff like that. What else would you tell our people, or just people in general, that's under the dollar right now? What more would you tell them other than invest in Bitcoin, just to get under the leaf?
And I will say, it doesn't even necessarily have to be Bitcoin. I definitely think it's probably the best hard asset that you can come across in today's day and age. I would just say, just have a plan for your money and just get your finances in order. You have to just take that inventory of just realizing where you're at. For me personally, I did a little bit of real estate in Atlanta, and, it was a challenge for me, and I had to take a step back. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to move back home so I can get everything in order. I have friends in different states and they're struggling, and I'm kind of helping them make ends meet. And, I kind of had to tell one of them, like, you may have to take some, self-evaluation of just kind of like where you're at. And it's just, nobody wants to give up their autonomy, or, they want to feel like they're making it and stuff like that. But it's just like, it's okay if you got to take a step back so you can get ahead. So I think the biggest thing is you have to just take inventory on just where you're at and understand that something has to change. We're all feeling it. Gas prices, groceries, nobody's getting job promotions like they used to, or the wages aren't increasing with inflation or the cost of living. So it's just like, you have to recognize, like, okay, something is off. And, I'm gonna be honest, I don't want anybody, because they didn't keep up with what was happening, I don't want people to start voting for policies that's gonna hurt me, where they're just like, taxes should be 50% for people that have over 800,000. Like, nah, don't screw me over because you just wasn't, preparing yourself and being disciplined enough to actually take the necessary steps. Just don't screw me over in the process.
Don't gotta buy liquor every week.
Right.
Don't gotta.
And then ask for more programs when that money isn't going to get trickled down into our communities.
I'm sorry, I gotta ask this question. I got to shout out to Coach Greg Adams out there.
Oh, Coach Greg, I haven't listened to him, but I know
that's the guy. Yeah. That's the guy saying free agent lifestyle.
Yeah, yep.
He said something in one of his previous broadcasts. He said, "You notice how we more so push toward the area of socialism now?
Yeah.
Because look where we at right now. We can't be at a football game, baseball game without them raising the American flag up and nobody standing." It's funny how we want to push for socialism now as black people start getting some money from not only Bitcoin, but from doing this.
Having the information in front of us, having access to that information. Yeah.
Now all of a sudden we want to push towards socialism. Everybody got to share.
Right.
You know what I mean? How could, it's awfully funny how that's going to be, we're in that mind state now.
And it's one of those things where when people say, just tax the rich, it's like, I don't think y'all really understand how this tax stuff really works. And the biggest thing is, like, what I want people to understand is that, of course, when you have greedy everything has its negatives. I'm not going to say, because right now, I always say we're living in a time of hyper-capitalism where everything is being monetized. Every little subscription, everything is just rising, everything, so it's just like...
WWE.
Yeah, right, hyper-capitalism, AEW, baby. Hyper-capitalism, basically, where every little thing costs money. So... and that's usually when we're at the end of this broken system, essentially, and it happened in other societies. So this is your signal of knowing, because we're in hyper-capitalism, that the cracks are starting to form. And this is, one of the things where it's like, okay, you're getting off the Titanic, which is the United States economy, and getting into your lifeboat, which I like to say is, Bitcoin or what have you. So it's one of those things where it's like, what the tax thing is, the tax code is written where it benefits individuals that pretty much stimulate the economy, that build, create jobs, employ people, invest in the economy, things that's actually going to help GDP output, things that actually going to, make the economy grow. So because of us, I always think of the movie Ants, where it was like they was born, it was like you was either a soldier or a worker. All of us got put into the system as just workers. You know what I'm saying? We're all workers. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, the system isn't going to reward us because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to work. You're supposed to get 1099s and W-2s. And that's the group of individuals like us that gets taxed the highest because we're not actually helping the economy grow. So all the tax incentives are designed to stimulate and grow the United States economy. And those are usually your business owners and your investors. So when I hear people say that, like, you should tax the rich, it's just like, well, for one, the tax code isn't written like that, but it's just like, you're not going to beat the system that is designed, to pretty much help, certain individuals. Just learn what, they're doing, follow the money, and I would say if you ever wanted to start a business over these next 4 years will be the perfect time because all the rules and regulations right now is incentivizing entrepreneurs and business owners to basically, build infrastructure. They can, write off everything, research and development, materials and all that good stuff. So if you ever wanted to give a shot at actually building your business, you've been sitting on an idea, you're not going to find a better time. Just like, I'm be honest, the last 4 years, if you just wanted to feed off the system, that would have been the last 4 years, probably no better time to feed off the system than it was over the last 4 years.
With Biden in office?
I mean, a lot of the programs that they had, yeah.
I just had to say it.
Which, I mean, no, well, I'm just saying there was a lot of emphasis was put in like social programs, health programs. There's nothing wrong with that. Once again, that's why I always say you got to follow, some policy, and if you want to opt out of policy, Bitcoin is your answer or whatever, because it's going to keep counting block by block, only a certain amount is going to keep getting minute. It's on a mathematical clock with certainty. So instead of dealing with, because even for myself, it's one of those things where my job is going to be, in jeopardy. We've already downsizing within our, agencies and stuff like that. So I'm being impacted just as much as everybody, but I'm not fearful because I understand I have a game plan and things of that nature.
Also, I got to mention the USA debt clock is also a good example of that too, because the debt is rising every day with the dollar.
Yeah. So you have $37 trillion in debt. Interest is more than, what is it? Medicaid and the defense budget and stuff like that. Like, that is just ridiculous. So once again, we're hustling for this dollar that's pretty much just backed by debt that doesn't have any future value whatsoever. So to kind of just go back to, like working at the average person or the regular individual just take personal inventory, just kind of get an idea of just where you're at. Come to the understanding and realization, like, you didn't necessarily do anything wrong. And I think that's another thing I want to add to is just, it's not that you was horrible with money and your money management skill was bad. I mean, it probably was, but the system has been corrupted and it has, 10, 20, 30 years, a lot of the decision making before we were even born has already impacted us. The moment we came out the womb, we was basically in debt. Essentially, our society was basically in debt. So I do want people to understand that it's not really your fault, but it's just like any government or, any society that prints its own money without no restrictions, this is what's going to happen. But there are solutions, there are products or stocks that, is backed by, Bitcoin as a collateral. You got these ETFs that's paying out massive cash flows because they're following the volatility of these certain underlying stocks. You got these yield bearing stocks. So there are products out there that pretty much is going to be your universal income or a way to at least keep up with the cost of living going up and inflation. Taking away your purchasing power. So there are solutions. And I think that's the thing we need to focus on is just like, okay, I know this is the problem and here's the solution. And the solution at the end of the day is get your inventory, make sure your cash flowing. Simple as you just have more money coming in that's going out. Okay. So either when you take personal inventory, if your income is not exceeding your expenses, I mean, you have a few options. Pick up another skill set, find a way to get a promotion, find another job, things of that nature, or, lowering your expenses by, of course, just cutting back. And where you can cut back on. Now, if it's just that everything is just razor thin of what you can do, and I will admit that I think most people are just maxed out. Like, I literally can't do any more. I would say just do what you can, do the best of your ability to kind of at least just try to break even, and then you will catch a break at some point. Like, I always think of everything as being temporary, and you talk about manifestation being spiritual. with your discipline and just like, okay, I'm going to put $1, here, $5 here, dude, that's going to take you a lot further than if you don't do anything.
You're not lying, man. My Robin Hood shot up one day. I just looked at it. I'm like, wow, I saved this much? Yeah.
Everybody's trying to hit homers, and I get it. We're all trying to hit licks. We're all trying to hit home runs, grand slams, what have you. I wish Tigers would have done that on Friday. But
Don't talk. Go blue. Boo.
But it's just consistent, and that's one thing I always preach. Like everything we're talking about, besides maybe inflation and how the economy and screwed us over the years, but a lot of this isn't new information. Maybe some of the stocks we're talking about, but we all heard of buy low, sell high. We've heard of certain terms and things of that nature. I think we all know the cost of living has gone up. I think most of us even recognize that our purchasing power has dwindled. We may not know why, but we all feel it and we all recognize it. And I think it's up to us at that point to actually do something about it. And it's just taking the little baby steps right now. And that baby step, once again, Bitcoin on a daily basis appreciates by 0.25%. And then you have $1 that's losing 0.007%. Like, and that just adds up over time.
Now, I do got a final question to ask you. You're a man of great knowledge. Where can people find you, to get more information?
So I will say this, I'm not big on social media. I've been talking about social media. I'm one of those people that will pretty much just have an account so I can get the information I need. I would say the biggest thing is support Detroit at Work, Sarah Metro Detroit. If you want to get in contact with me, you can find me on Facebook, Desmond Hill, Southfield, Michigan. Even email me at my work email if you want to actually set up, because I'm more than happy to help people get these accounts in place. And pretty much kind of really deep dive into their own situation and actually show them how to apply what we're talking about to more of their specific situation. So dhill@detroitatwork.com is a good way to email me, like, hey, I was just listening to the podcast that you were on this previous week, and definitely will like to communicate with you, maybe possibly just set something up. So this information, is not really for me. It's more so for, getting that message out there. So, I'm not one to just take all that type of attention, but because I really do believe, and that's the reason why I even took the job that I'm in now, because, I'll be honest, working in a nonprofit isn't really, life-changing money or anything like that. But because of the information and knowledge that I do have, it put me in a position where I can have this type of job so I can, help individuals that may not have quick and easy access. And even though I'm not a financial advisor, I already know what they're going to, teach individuals, or not even teach. It's more so just buy our mutual fund. Buy my company's mutual fund, and we're going to invest it, and hopefully it grows by 2 to 4% annually. And,
What's the entry fee for the mutual fund?
Usually like 1% or 2, depending on what the fund is. When you add up all the fees, yeah.
Oh, because I'm considering reaching out to you also. I definitely...
Oh, well, no, I don't have a mutual fund. You're talking about...
No, I thought you... Okay.
No. I'm talking about if you go to like a Northwest Mutual or something. You know what I'm saying? Like what?
I got them.
Yeah. So no. I don't have any fees. Everything you if you deal with me, and I think sometimes the way I talk, people think I'm selling them something, and I'm not. So everything you do with me, it's free. Like it's
nonprofit.
Yeah, and even just me sharing all this and setting up, like I'm fine.
Well, a man of great wealth don't always mean money, just mean knowledge.
Absolutely.
Now, you heard the man. Now, what you willing to do with this information is on you.
Yeah.
And you taxpayers, the reason why y'all pay a lot is because you volunteered.
Big
No,
facts.
play.
No.
Hey, little nuggets. If y'all know, you know.
Do you got any more questions?
No, I don't got no more questions.
Well, we come to the wind down of the episode where we're going to pull our questions. We already spoke to you about how we do it. So what we're going to do is play our favorite theme music.
Yo. We talking finances, take chances. Life will be enhanced.
Money, romances, dances.
Oh wow! I'm gonna leave it at this.
Actually, I got a very good question here. You want to go first, or you want?
Sure. This is.
If that's not a good question, you can pull another one.
Well, I'm gonna just talk through it, I guess. Do you think majority of scientists are religious? And I would say no.
Why?
Because scientists, they have to do a lot of, trial and errors, having a hypothesis, being able, trying different things out, different variables. So they need basically for things to back up their thesis statements. Okay. So for them, I would just say it breaks down to actually being able to prove and validate their findings. So I would say most scientists aren't that religious. But yeah.
You remember the show X-Files?
I remember, but I never got into it.
Okay, I can't remember their name. Scully and the other one. The girl didn't believe, but she wasn't against it. I think that's what a lot of scientists are. Like I'm not atheist, but
and I think a lot of people are just more and more. When I talk to people, it's just more and more like I'm just in spirituality, and I'm one of those type. I'm kind of the same way. I was raised, a Christian. I'm all about whatever makes you a better person. I don't care what you believe in.
Yeah.
You can believe in the table or the sun.
There's some demons in churches. There's some evil people in some of these temples.
I want to say they did a study to prove that the Most High is real.
Who was real?
That the Most High or God.
Yeah.
They did a study, but you know what? I can't say if they all don't believe in God or not because I haven't met every scientist. But, I'm just leaving it at that. I don't know.
I definitely believe in higher powers. Like, I think there's forces we cannot explain,
Colors we can't see.
Yeah, exactly. Ultraviolet, all that stuff, different spectrums of colors and stuff. So even like when you get into like quantum theory and all that stuff, we only see point like 0.0001 of mass, basically, and everything we're seeing is actually taking up 99.99999% of space. You know what I'm saying? So we're seeing everything we see right now in this room is actually only 0.00001 of what's actually surrounding us at this given moment. So there's forces and energies and all that stuff.
Like what we said about manifestation. You know what I mean? That's a good example of that.
Absolutely.
So, we can go with that question.
Yeah. My question says, can I go next?
Go ahead.
My question says, what state has all the good women?
I haven't been to all the states.
Me either, but I do like it here in Michigan. I feel like a southern state, probably Oklahoma or something, or Wyoming or something. Wait, I can't think of where.
I still want to go to Oregon.
Oh, I just went to Oregon. I was in Eugene. Beautiful.
How's the women? Did you see the women out there?
I didn't see that many. They actually surprisingly, the women wasn't bad because we were actually on Oregon's campus. It was straight. It was
Go Ducks.
If that's your type of women.
Puddles.
Sure.
Well, we were told that Oregon has some of the best women in the country by people that are residents. So it was on the show.
What city are they in? What, Portland?
Portland.
Yeah, Portland.
Because they said Oregon is a strip club capital. I never knew that.
I thought Atlanta was a strip club capital.
According to them. So.
That's what I thought. Hey,
I'm going to go with Florida or Texas. I'm going to say Texas, more naturally born.
I would not say Florida. Yeah, never Florida.
Okay,
That's so much fakeness down there.
And that's why I said naturally born Texas. Like, I'm going to go with Texas.
I would say, with me, I'm going to say Miami, but you got to, I'll talk about Miami before
We said
the
state.
Know what? Let me just say this. I know we said Florida, but I'm saying in Florida, Miami, before the pandemic.
Okay.
Is
Maybe
that,
New Orleans might have some good women. I don't know.
I've never
like you
been
said,
to
I
New
haven't traveled.
I've never been. I can't speak on that.
Been to Vegas. Salute.
How's the women?
Vegas was straight too.
I was mainly on the Strip, so I don't want to judge all of Nevada off of Vegas.
And mostly everybody's just on the Strip.
Let me travel to all 50 states and I'll get back with you on that.
I like it here in Michigan, though. Yeah, I got some nice women.
Yeah.
But
I would definitely say top 5 for sure for Michigan.
Michigan, yeah.
Wifey type, though, just don't exist in Detroit. I'm sorry, Detroit. I love y'all, but wifey type.
I would say this.
Not in Detroit.
So being in Atlanta, because I was, I graduated in 4 years and I stayed back extra 2 years, working and stuff. So I was there for 6 years. And, everybody for that, and this is during 2008 to 2014 is the time frame. And it's just a great social life. A lot of people are in relationships, but a lot of people are single. So it's just being out and about, you can have an actual great singles life, basically. I don't know how much has changed since then, but that's how it was when I was there. Now, when I moved back to Michigan in 2014, it was just a shock to me because it was one of those things like people just wasn't out as much. Of course, our population.
What year did you move back?
2014.
Okay.
So it's been like 11 years.
And you was down there for what year?
6 years. So 2008 to 2014.
So how's the women down there when you was down there?
It was great. You know, I mean, your selection of black women is just, amazing.
You said they outnumber them. How much? 5 to 1?
Like 20-1 when I was down there, 18.
And then on top of that, then you got the guys who like guys, so that make it
Yeah,
even
and that's
better.
what I used to draw. Like, hey, they can like as many guys as they like. Like, that's just more for me. I love
That's
it.
the way I see it.
For what I was told nowadays, they got a big, cross population. So they say you got to be careful with that too.
I can imagine, for sure.
So we all go with that
Oh
question.
yeah.
So my question right here says, what do they need to change about the law? Didn't we do this one?
Which
I
law?
might have.
Well, they said, what do they need to change about the law?
I mean, leave the Constitution alone. Leave abortions alone. What they got to change though?
I mean, that's just so general, though. Like, which law?
I can pick another question.
Go ahead, leave that out.
Yeah. All right. What was the worst job you ever had? I swear we did this one before.
I think we did that too. Because I said I was a door-to-door salesman. I remember that
Working
question.
at the post office, but that was just because there was nothing wrong with the job. It was just I had to work the night shifts, and I was young, so I went to hang out.
Okay, I don't think we did this one before. Are alpha females a real thing?
Amongst women, yes. Yeah.
What's your what is it? Your boss ladies type? You know, as your alpha.
Independent, I guess,
I hate these alpha words and stuff. I get it, but
it wasn't a thing till like before the pandemic.
It's a mentality. I get it though. You're more of a leadership,
assertive,
woman. Yeah.
type A personality.
But before we get into that, I know we just said independent, but what is really the definition of an alpha?
Man.
Is it one that stands out beyond the women, or what does that really mean?
I just say someone who takes up the initiative, assertive, as he said, the leadership role, the one that people look towards, for wisdom and other things. Like
if
a
you look at-
matriarch of, I guess, a feminine community, even.
Sound like you're trying to be a man.
I mean, but that's kind of just the qualities. I mean, when you talk about that, those are qualities of traditionally what will be considered like the yin and the yangs, solar and night, or, stuff like that, daylight versus night. I mean, you need the opposites, basically, and I think our society has tried to train women to be more manly and then guys to be more feminine.
Yes.
To reverse roles. And I think that's the reason why we have the issues in our specific community. And of course, it's branching out to other communities. Yeah, it's definitely, they already destroyed our communities, in the 70s, or especially the 80s, and all that stuff.
I say physically, an alpha woman is flat chested. No, I'm joking.
Well, let me just ask you this. Now, let's just say if she run across a man of the same caliber, can they get along? I say they can't, because one got to be the alpha.
Yeah.
One got to submit to
somebody
the other.
always, and that's just natural. I forget the dynamic of it, but somebody's always going to be the subservient one, and the other person's always going to be dominant.
And it's always going to be that clash, that tension. Like, no, I'm right. No, I'm right. No, let's do it.
I'm gonna
this
be
way.
honest, personally. If my woman want to be alpha, she got it. Because this for me, and I know I always speak to women, they're just like, oh, guys are so intimidated by women that makes a lot of money. I guess for me, I've always been around successful women, and it's just like, that doesn't faze me whatsoever. And most guys don't really care about those things, and they try to project that like we care, and it's just like, we
What does
do
your money
not
have to do with us?
I got my own house and 3 credit cards.
Right, we don't care. Like, for a guy, if you was a garbage woman, but you was down to earth, chill, didn't get any headaches or drama, we would date you and probably wife you up.
I'm going to keep it 100 with you. I think that whole I make my own money is a coping mechanism to hide behind who you
absolutely.
really are. That's what it really is.
For sure.
Ladies, if y'all want to get chose by a man, just know we don't care about your money. Yeah, looks do matter. I ain't gonna front.
Yeah, it does.
Be down to earth, be open to new experiences, and don't speak about your ex and a few other things.
The exes is always either they're either narcissists or they were abusive.
Yeah.
Can I also say this? Don't ask your man stupid ass questions. Now, what I mean by that is this woman that went out on a date, now she was walking back to her car alone because she asked a man she was on a date with, why should your last name be worthy for me to take it on?
See, and these, and then now this, I don't deal with that. I'm just like, oh yeah, we're not gonna work.
So you saw the BS in that.
No, well yeah, well that's just how, that's my natural response. I was like, no, okay, that's fine. You're right.
What
Yep.
type of questions is that to ask somebody? Especially somebody you don't even know.
And ladies, if we say we're allergic to cats, don't ask us for oral.
And also too, am I playing the game? Unless you ain't trying to join in, be quiet.
Learn how to play the game for real though. Learn how to play the game.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And learn how to cook too.
And make sure whatever you do, make sure the first kid is a boy. Figure it out.
Did they really?
I mean,
I'm joking.
And also too,
we just need to come together. I'm sorry, because this kind of always goes on my next tangent. As much as I care about finances, the next thing I care about is just our community in terms of our relationship with one another. Like I always tell people, the biggest things that I think we need to work on in the Black community is emphasizing having family structure, okay? And I don't care if it's 2 women in a household or 2 men in a household. You need to have 2 adults in the household.
But is there a chance we'll ever be like how it was?
Yeah.
Not at this rate.
And sprinkle
Well, because
peppered
now
around.
we all have created our own silos where we find, and I can be guilty of this too, where we find our own comfort level just behind a screen or not having to interact with individuals. Like more and more, you just, people are just like, oh, I don't like humans, or I get tired, and most people don't even know how to interact with one another anymore. So it's like now that we have instant gratification, where we have access, where I'm gonna be honest, like women pretty much show their bodies everywhere. So it's like
This is the government.
like there's like there's nothing that is now just either enticing or worthwhile or worth pursuing, because it's like we've seen it all.
And really, I think a lot of us are broken too. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? A lot of us
of trauma for sure. Yeah.
Which we've been through a lot. We've seen a lot. We heard a lot.
People are scared to be vulnerable. I mean, it is just because nobody wants to be hurt, and it's just, and I think that's just the way we've been conditioned in our society, where we have gotten weaker, where that's why everybody, wants to cancel each other, and everybody's so sensitive, or, I don't say things politically correct at all. That's why I was always like, I couldn't be a politician, because they're like, this guy is this.
I mean, look 2 months ago, look what we just went through. We went through the T-app. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That was a thing by itself. Where's the T-app now?
It probably still is a thing, but
Underground for sure.
Yeah, it's like that for that whole week, the T.I. was talking the time. We need to expose these men. Mm-hmm. And then the man came with a counter told we need to expose these women, which already happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, we exposed them way worse. We literally.
Yeah, we did.
But that's another thing. So it's like we're constantly going at each other. So, that's that. And then just kind of, the next will be just focus on children education. So I think we need to fix our family structure and prioritize children education. And I think once you do that, a lot of the issues that we have will kind of solve itself, okay? Because we can't keep going on like, okay, we're victims of our oppression, of slavery, and all this other stuff. Like, yes, I get it. And my favorite subject in school growing up was history. So I definitely get it. I went to an HBCU. Trust me, I get it, But at the end of the day, every other race has been slaves at the end of the day, and every other community has learned how to come back together. And yes, I get that over different decades, there were different bombings in different Black cities and all this other stuff. I get that, and it was effed up for sure. But I think now in today's world, it will be definitely harder to do this type of thing. Like, you're not gonna. That's like them blowing up Atlanta right now. You know what I'm saying? Making.
I mean,
now it's allegedly they put like, we're just gonna blow up everybody in 285 or whatever. But what I'm
they
saying
put a
is,
gay bomb in Atlanta with atrazine in it. That's why allegedly.
but what I'm saying is that ultimately we got to take accountability. At the end of the day, we got to just be like, okay, are we going to keep just depending on this system that we absolutely despise and hate, but at the same time we want acceptance into? You know what I'm saying? Or at the same time we expect them to change the way that they view us. It's like, no, we need to start changing the way we communicate with each other and how we interact. Like I always think about the N-word or whatever. When I was growing up, I never used to say, nigga or whatever, But, when I went into college, I remember it just, escalated, and it just basically like me saying that word just became a natural thing, to the point that even at the end of our freshman year at college, they actually asked us on a survey, did the increase of the usage of the word, nigga, did that increase basically? And it was just like, oh, absolutely, yes. So it's just the community that I'm around. So it's like, at the end of the day, if you hate for individuals to use that word, I mean, it's not a word of endearment. So it's just like, why then?
It's not a word of endearment?
Well, I'm saying using the word like how we'll use the word to each other. You know what I'm saying?
But you know what's so bad right now? We're using it in front of other races as well, and when they use it,
they shouldn't be eavesdropping.
Well, you know what's so crazy? So I remember I was at this.
Shouldn't be eavesdropping.
I remember I was at this.
But we say it freely. I mean,
but other races use it freely. And I remember I was at this Michigan game in Ann Arbor a few years ago, and I heard these 2 white girls talking. And they was just talking to each other, and then they was just using the N-word to each other. Like, yeah, nigga, like, and it was just so natural for them saying it, and it was just crazy, because I'm just like, they don't think nothing of it. Like, that's just naturally for them, and it was just flowing out of their mouths to each other.
I know other races do it, man. I've been knew that for years.
So, because they're taking on our culture at the same time, and that's why I started off with saying, our community, you need to come together, but even just the bad and all that stuff is spreading to other communities, so other, races, ethnicities, and whatever. And it's just a way to break us all down. And I mean, that's the whole reason why they want us to hate America. It's the reason why they want us to hate capitalism. Because if you, just like with, the black community, being African American, beyond slavery, a lot of us don't even understand our own history, our own ancestors. That's why even with Black History Month, it's falling off so much, because just like, it's the same thing being, regurgitated, MLK and, Rosa Parks, but it's just like, the black community, black people, we did so much.
Technically, this is our stuff. This is our shit.
Yeah. We did so much, and it's always just sound bites of the same things over and over again. But, kind of just reeling it in again, us talking about, guys versus girls and all this other stuff. It's the same thing with dark skin versus light skin, East versus West, like different frats and sororities. And we have so much division. I grew up in the suburbs and the urban, Uncle Tom and, all this other stuff. And it's just so crazy, because it's like, it worked. They divided us up where it's like we can't even connect with one another. And now we see it on a grand scale where, Democrats and Republicans, you know what I'm saying?
Especially
You're MAGA. Yeah, like you're MAGA or whatever. And it's just crazy, because it's like, at the end of the day, I look at it, man, they're all part of the same team. Democrats, Republicans. They're all part of the same system. They're all part of the same team. They both all put us in the same exact situation. Not one of them is going to bail us out, basically, So once we start getting hip to all of this and just start realizing, like, okay, this is BS. Like, guys and girls, we need to team up. You know what I'm saying? If you're straight, gay, lesbian, whatever, trans, like, once again, we need to all team up, and, start really asking the right questions to the people that have been in control of these systems for a very long time. And I mean, some of it, I think we recognize some of the names, but a lot of it is probably just people we never even heard of, because we all know, like, the names that's in the forefront are probably more so, the puppets or, just the face.
Yeah. All them, yeah. DuPonts.
All that. So I think ultimately
this is the government.
any family that has been consistently rich, any consistently rich family.
The CIA.
So it's just, and I know I'm just kind of rambling and stuff, but like, women and men, we both play important roles. You need men, we need women. Like, and I don't know why one think they're better than. No, you're not. We're not.
Because programming. Yeah. Especially with feminism and all this other malarkey going on right here.
Yeah.
High value man, high value woman. I'm more educated than you. Yeah. And, all this malarkey out here.
Yeah. And it's just frustrating, because we're just playing right into what they want us to, play into, and we're better than that. We have the information, we have the knowledge. And another thing is, and I'm pretty much gonna leave it at this, you don't have to have an opinion on everything. I think everybody has to speak on everything. And it's okay. It's like, I just don't know, or I don't have an opinion on this, because we're bombarded with so much that's going on globally, especially. And it's just like, even just 50 years ago, you didn't know what was going on the street over, you know what I'm saying? Or the state over. But now you want us to be so emotionally attached and drained to stuff that's going on half the world. And I get it. It's like, just being socially conscious. But to me, I just think that's just another form of control and getting you emotionally trapped. And at the end of the day, like I say, you don't have to have an opinion on everything, or because most of the people don't even have all the information, but they're going to speak like they do. And it's just like, just because you read one tweet or you did a quick Google search on something surface level, and now you think, you have a PhD in this, and it's just like, you don't need to have an opinion on everything. It's okay.
All right. Hey, we need to,
that's my rant. I'm done. Yeah.
Good episode, y'all.
Great episode. Again,
get y'all some Bitcoin.
Get you some Bitcoin.
That's the moral of all of this.
The moral is just know that you're in a system that our current currency is losing its value day by day, and the system itself is perpetuating that issue. So just understand that as you're trying to stay afloat, you're trying to either find a job or you're working, just be proactive in the idea of like, okay, I got to make sure this money is working just as hard for it that I am, or making the money work as hard for me as I am for it, essentially.
He not lying, y'all. I remember, again, back in my day, $1 I could get an oatmeal cream pie and an Ohana or a Faygo drink. Now $1,
chips.
now $1 don't even get what they raised.
Yeah.
Cream pies, everything is more money now. One Ohana is what, $1.20 now or something like that?
Bro, look at the bag of chips you get. Like half the bag is filled with air.
Right. And that's another shrinkflation. Yeah.
And it's like $3.
Yeah.
That's
I remember that.
me.
Yeah, I remember that meme where it say $20 worth of groceries and it's filled up in like 1950s, 1960s.
I like that now.
$20 worth of groceries. Now you get like bread and like celery, a stalk of celery. That's it.
So, and that's the thing. So just don't think more government program. And this is, and once again, because this even, one last thing that I want to add on. So even in my job, we have this program where if you're able to save between $300 and $500 over 6 months, we'll match you that amount. We'll just cut you a check for $500.
I'm about to pull up, man.
So the thing is, you will think like, okay, so all I gotta do is already just save, and then you're gonna give me $500 for saving $500. So I'm gonna have $1,000 at the end of 6 months. You know how many people take advantage of that?
I'm about to.
And then they give it, and it's like my, managers or whoever get upset at me, like, well, why people aren't saving? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I tell them how easy it is, and some of it is like, they'll be saving for like 4 to 5 months, and then it's like, it's a psychological block. They'll end up spending the money, or life does happen. Like, I get it. Life emergencies happen. But it just tells me like there's just a psychological block or a level that they don't even think they can get past. But it's like people vote for more programs, and I'm just like, y'all won't even take advantage of the programs that's right in front of you, And it's like to the point where I'm begging to give them this money. And I hate saying free money, but it's free money.
Now, do you got to be a Detroit resident for this?
Yeah. Well, no, not for this particular program, no.
Well, this is Detroit work program, right?
No. So this is another one of a Center for Working Families. This is more of a niche. It's a model that they're testing out. But it's backed by Rocket. And it's just one of the programs within this model, Center for Working Families, where they offer, because the whole idea is to help people save so then they can eventually start using it for a down payment on a house. Because it's backed by Rocket.
What's the criteria for that?
Save.
Just save.
You got to work with me, of course, and then of course, I enroll you. But as long as you have a savings account, it could be any savings account. All you got to do is just make consistent deposits into that savings account over 5 months. And you can't pull it out at any time. You can't make any purchases. So it's actually you discipline yourself just to save it.
So day one, I can't just walk in with 500.
No. So that's not. But what I tell people to even get around that is like, if you have $500 in your checking account, just drip it in. Because all I'm going to look at is the savings account.
And over time, what's the period of time? Every month for 5 months?
Yeah, so if you just do $84 a month over 6 months, that averages out to about $500.
And that's the only amount they match is 500. Because I would.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, what I'm saying is, people demand that, there's more programs, there's more money, more stimulus, but it's just like, y'all don't even know what to do with it. More money isn't going to actually save you if you're not disciplined in your habits. That's why it goes back to taking inventory, getting understanding of your habits, your spending behaviors, things of that nature. And then it's like, you get rewarded. Money will reward you if you're disciplined. Basically.
That's very true. Now, what's the name of that program with the $500 match?
You have to go through Center Working with Families. If you go to our website, sarahmetro.org, and then you go to the adult services, there's different programs like Rebuild Detroit. Now, this is another big one. Now, this is kind of like promotions of the things. Rebuild Detroit, now that is for Detroit residents, but it's to get into like the skilled trades. Work, and it's like an introductory. So it's definitely beneficial for if you have, a kid that just got out of high school and they're not really sure what they want to do. They can get like an introductory to all the different, contractual type work that's out there, if it's carpentry, welding, things of that nature. And it's a 2-month program. You get a stipend at the end. I hate for me to say that, but you get like a stipend at the end, but you learn all this stuff. You have different construction companies that come in and talk to you. And if they know that you went through the Rebuild Detroit program, then, you getting into like an apprenticeship or something like that, your chances are definitely higher. So I definitely say like, even for, within our community, individuals that's, especially you could be any age, but like definitely if you're younger and, you're not sure if you want to go to college, because we all know college kind of right now is like, how much that costs. But that is still in demand. So even I know we talked about AI, but I mean, right now, I mean, robotics ain't gonna completely come to my house and do my plumbing in 10 years. I mean, maybe it could, but
Not
I
right
think
now.
I think you still got time.
Well, you know, we'll definitely put the information in the link below on this video because that's something people really need to get involved.
Yeah,
I mean, he
absolutely.
told you. Now it's up to you whether you want to follow it or not.
Even though the money is depleted in pensions, annuities, and 401k, well, pensions and annuities, they are in trades, definitely. So
And like you said before, the 401ks, now that you have an option where you can invest in Bitcoin if you want to. So
Yep.
you ain't got no excuse.
You don't. And that's the thing. Like, they're putting this information right out there, of course, with all the other distractions, government shutdowns.
P. Diddy.
Right. So you don't really think any of this is happening, but it's happening in real time right now. And then on top of it, you feel it happening at the same time with, you know, the cost of living and all that.
Man, we want to thank you again for being on the
Absolutely.
show.
I
Let's give
appreciate
it
you
a
guys
round.
having me.
Well, you know where to find him. He's in Detroit at work, man. Definitely go check him out, and definitely we're going to put all the programs in the link below. Is there anything else you want to say before you get up out of here?
Just have a game plan for your money and you can do it. And I think that's the biggest thing. You don't have to be a rocket science. You don't have to be good in math or be an engineer. You know, one thing that I am happy that a lot of this investing has been brought to Main Street. So it's definitely doable. And the biggest thing is just being consistent and disciplined. If you give yourself at least a 5-10 year horizon, you'll be happy that you did so.
Well, thank you again for being on the show, my brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
all right, yeah, I'm Stubbs signing out.
I'm your boy Adrian, a.k.a. D. We out of here. Peace.
Peace.